I'm Zach, and my world imploded when I walked in on my wife Sherry with another man in our kitchen. She didn't see me recording every vile moment. Betrayal burned in my veins as I watched her smile at him, a smile she never showed me. I couldn't let it go. I plotted my revenge with meticulous precision. I exposed her deceit, destroying her business and reputation. She begged for mercy, but I had none left to give. This is my tale of betrayal turned vengeance, a relentless pursuit to make her pay for shattering our life. I was now 50 years old and back in college. It was a big change for me. I never thought I would end up here, but life can surprise you. It can throw you around in ways you don't expect. I had a stable job in middle management. I worked for the same company for nearly 30 years, but then the economy crashed and my company had to downsize. In just 18 months, we cut our staff by 60%. Suddenly, there were too many older managers like me. I knew I would lose my job, but I didn't tell Sherry. I didn't want her to worry. Sherry had her own troubles. She owned a small real estate business. She did well when the market was good, but the last few years had been tough. She managed to sell one house every 2 months, which was better than many of her competitors. So when I lost my job, it didn't shock me. The money I received when I left was not great, but it was more than I expected. On my last day, I stayed until noon to say goodbye to my coworkers. After a while, I couldn't handle any more handshakes or hugs. Even though I was out of work, we were okay financially. Our house was paid off, and so were 2 of our cars. I also had a motorcycle, and Sherry owned a sailboat. She loved sailing, but I got really nauseous once we were too far from the shore, so I didn't join her much. Her friend Barb often went with her to enjoy the boat. They sailed on a nearby lake. I wanted to surprise Sherry with a nice lunch to soften the blow of my news. She had 3 showings that day, her best in months. The night before, she was full of hope. "Things are getting better, babe," she said with a smile. I tried to find her but didn't see her at the first house I visited. I did find her car at a fancy property, a big house with a gym, a huge kitchen, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool. If she sold it, her commission would be very nice. Sherry would turn off her phone when with clients, so I didn't call her. I opened the door slowly so I wouldn't disturb her. I just wanted to catch her eye and wave from outside. We had done this before. I found them in the kitchen. A man was leaning against the counter, his pants down. Sherry, my Sherry, was kneeling down in front of him. The man said, "Wow, this feels amazing. How did you learn to do this?" Sherry pulled away and smiled at him. "Lots of practice. Are you still unsure about this house?" That was odd. She never used to practice with me. She said she didn't like it. The man then put his hand on her head, guiding her back down. "I think my wife will really like this house." She paused before going back to him. "Just think, if you buy this place, every time you see your wife at this counter, you'll smile. Maybe you can get her to do the same thing." He replied, "Wow, that would be something," as she returned to him. I was shocked. I stood there frozen for a moment, then took my phone out to record. I got enough video and caught their conversation. Then my anger erupted. They still hadn't seen me, so I moved closer. Sherry wouldn't be able to see me over the counter. I grabbed the man's collar and pulled him over the counter, hitting him hard in the ear. He fell to the ground, blood spilling out. "What the hell?" he yelled as he fell. He protected himself, so I kicked him in the stomach and ribs a few times before he rolled over. I kicked him a bit more. He'd have some serious bruises. Sherry finally noticed me. It was clear she was caught off guard, and her reaction was one of pure shock. I stopped kicking him and took a few more pictures before moving around the counter. Her eyes were wide with fear. "Run!" I yelled in anger. She fled, leaving her blouse undone. A second later, I heard her car peel out from the driveway. The man was still down, moaning in pain as I leaned over him. He begged me not to hit him again. I reached into his pocket and took his wallet, pulling out his ID. "I'll return this after I make a copy. I need to know where to find you for court." He continued to plead. "Please, I'll lose my family. I've heard stories about this. I couldn't believe it at first, but I didn't think it would happen to me. Please!" I made him give me a list of his friends, warning him that if he lied, I would share the pictures with their wives. After that day, I never spoke to Sherry again, except in court. She sent me a long letter that I ignored for almost a year. When I finally read it, She said she was sorry and didn't mean to hurt me. She did it to save her business. I didn't want to hear more, so I threw the letter away. I tried to keep things civil until she realized I wasn't coming back and started acting mean. We met with her lawyer. Until then, I had kept the photos private. I handed over a set of pictures. "Tell her if she fights me, these go public," I said. "I found 2 other men who have stories to tell about her. This could ruin her career as a real estate agent. She needs to make a decision by the end of the day." Her lawyer called back just before the deadline. It was hard for her, but she had no choice. I didn't want to live in our house again, so she had to buy me out or sell it. She was furious when I made it clear that if it went up for sale, I would not allow her to handle the listing. And that was just the beginning. She had to sell her sailboat and her Mustang to get the money to buy my share. Even though she kept it quiet, rumors spread, and soon she was having a hard time getting listings. Too bad for her. When the divorce was over, I moved away. There was nothing keeping me there. I found a nice place that was a foreclosure. Thanks to Sherry, I learned a lot about real estate and got a great deal. It was in the countryside, a 3-bedroom house with 9 acres. There were a few extra buildings and even a small barn. It was more than I needed, but it was such a good price that I couldn't say no. Plus, if I held on to it for a few years and sold it, I'd likely make a nice profit. My job counselor was clear with me. "This job market is even tougher than where you came from, and not having a degree is really hurting you. We have a program that could help you. You have enough credits from college that you only need about 1.5 years to finish your degree. It's been a while since you were in school, so you might have to retake a few classes, but you could finish in under 2 years. The program pays for the books and tuition, and you'd still get health benefits." What did I have to lose? I went to a community college that worked with a university. I could take their classes and still get a 4-year degree. I liked that about half of the students were older, either out of work like me or going part-time to improve their lives. I made a few friends. College was a fun place, and I went on a few dates. Some of the students were as young as my 2 sons from my first marriage. Unfortunately, I caught my partner cheating. Luckily, the boys were in their middle teens, so it didn't hurt as much as it would have when they were younger. She moved far away, and I only saw the boys for part of the summer and winter holidays. Still, we had a good relationship. I enjoyed myself. I had my fun, but I wasn't looking for a new life partner. I had been through that twice already and didn't want to go there again. I just needed 1 more semester to get my degree and was taking some advanced classes. In one class, we worked on a project to create and market a fake business. Our teacher paired us up with people who had very different backgrounds to boost creativity. My partner was 20 years old and studying fashion. She was smart, but didn't have much real-world experience. We looked at each other, unsure of what to do. I invited her and 3 other teams over to my place for a brainstorming session. The teacher said it would help us think more creatively. I ordered pizza and we shared ideas until our heads hurt, but we didn't come up with anything great. When we were all tired, we decided to take a break and started drinking. I took the keys from a couple of students whose spouses came to pick them up, and I tried to help everyone get settled. Gail, my partner, hadn't had much to drink, so she helped me out. We figured out where everyone would sleep using air mattresses, a fold-out couch, and the 2 spare bedrooms. Afterward, we sat down for a second. I listened as she shared some fashion history with me. It's all about getting noticed and branding. You probably remember members-only jackets. They were cheap and not very well made, but someone made a lot of money from them. I winced, trying to remember if I still had mine. And Izod shirts! Those long-tail shirts were first aimed at tennis players and didn't do well at all. The designer was ready to stop making them until a famous golfer wore one. Suddenly, they were super popular, she sighed. It's about finding the right audience and a good marketing plan, along with a product people want, and then you're swimming in money. I glanced over at Jamie and his girlfriend Alice cuddling together. Jamie was studying agribusiness and Alice was in nursing. They were both about 30 pounds overweight and very much in love. Yeah, it seems like rednecks are the only group not targeted. How about redneck chic? She giggled. We'd have to create a brand for them. I looked at Jamie's sweatshirt. It was from Aeropostale. How about Air Possum? She laughed so hard she snorted and Alice rolled over, showing us her broad back. Yeah, and we could have a line of jeans called Lardash. We joked back and forth until Gail went into her bedroom for the night. The next morning, the first thing on my mind was our conversation. I had an idea for our fake business. My skills in administration and marketing could work well with her fashion knowledge and design skills. I brewed some coffee, and Gail helped me make breakfast. Soon, those who were ready to eat joined us, while others drank coffee and juice and complained about the morning. I asked Gail to stay behind when everyone left. I shared my idea with her, and she smiled big. I was thinking along the same lines. She showed me a logo with a cute possum, but I thought something was missing. She agreed. "I got it," I exclaimed a little later. "She needs wings. After all, it is air possum." She agreed, making some changes. It looked a lot better. Then she created a logo for Lardash, with letters shaped like two big buttocks in pink. It would be small and on the right back pocket. So we had the design, the business plan, and the marketing idea. Now it was time to put it into action. I thought our product had real potential. Gail didn't have money, but she had talent. She would handle the actual making of the products. I could handle everything else. One night after work, I asked her, "Gail, wouldn't a real product look better than computer graphics? What do we need to make that happen?" She seemed to have thought about it already. "For the shirts and hats, we need a good monogram machine, one that can be programmed." "How much would that cost?" I wanted to know. "It depends on how much thread it can handle and how fast it works. You could spend a lot. Brands like Melcro and Brother have good machines that cost between $7,000 and $15,000 when new. But if you look for a used one, especially from someone going out of business, you might find one for about half the price." Wow, that was more than I expected. Still, it was a decent starting point. "Gail, I have an idea. Let's go for it. I have some money to invest to get us started. You can design and make the products while I take care of everything else. Think about it." She did, for about 30 seconds. Next, I hired a lawyer and told him what I wanted and what I thought was fair. He set up a meeting for us. The company would be called Redneck Chic Clothing Company. I would own that name and Air Possum. Gail would own the Lardash name. Since I was putting up the money and paying bills until we made a profit, I would get 65%, and Gail would get 35%. She didn't like it, but she signed the papers knowing I could replace her if needed. We got lucky and found a used Melcro machine. It was $12,000 new, but the seller was eager to sell, and we bought it for $4,000. We set it up in my garage. We paid someone to come teach us how to use it for a day, hinting that if it worked well, we might buy more in the future. Gail was excited. We went out and bought 6 dozen different T-shirts, 3 dozen for men and 3 dozen for women. The men's shirts were black and dark red, while the women's were pink, yellow, and light green. All were large to 3XL sizes. We also bought 2 dozen black and white men's hats and 2 dozen for women in pink or white. It took her half a day to program our logo through trial and error, but it turned out just right. Soon, all 16 needles were busy creating our design. We made the logos small but clear because the threads were pricey. The colors were shades of gray, white, silver, and black, with the wings being all silver. She designed it to have a light, airy look. We got Alice, Jamie, and 4 of their big friends to model our products for a presentation. Gail insisted we needed an overlock machine to sew the sample jeans. It was much cheaper than the monogram machine. We even had some guys from a TV and radio show make a commercial for us. It showed Alice wearing our jeans and shirt, helping Jamie on the farm. Later, she wore the dressier version with a pink-collared shirt that had the Air Possum logo on the pocket. She looked confident and had beautiful eyes. She smiled at the camera while her voice carried the message, "Lardash jeans, not for little girls." The teacher was shocked. We did great in the course, but more importantly, we started getting orders. We built a local following. I had ideas for the business, and so did Gail. Many we agreed on, but not all. I had a metal building on my property, 48 by 36 feet. We got permission to use it for our small business, fixed it up, added insulation, and a heat pump. We built 2 restrooms and a small break room. Then we set up 12 new Melcro machines and advertised for employees. We were fortunate. There had been a lot of textile work in the area, and many skilled sewers were looking for jobs. 900 people applied for the 12 spots. We screened them carefully, asking them to use the machine before considering them. Many were nervous, as they had never used that type of machine. We set aside the ones who showed promise. In a week, we had 11 people hired. I hired one more without Gail's input. She showed up unexpectedly and didn't fill out an application. I heard there are sewing jobs available. I looked at her. She was black, overweight, and looked to be in her 60s. I thought I would talk to her, help her gently, and send her on her way. Do you have any experience? I asked. All I've ever done is sew. I started when I was 13, 50 years ago. I've sewn shirts, furniture, leather, sails, and mattress covers. If a needle can go through it, I can sew it. She paused for breath. I need this job, mister. My husband passed away last year. We didn't save much, and I'm raising 2 grandkids. My unemployment is about to run out. I might have to go on welfare, something I always said I wouldn't do. I've never missed a day of work in my life except when I had my children. Please, mister. I could see tears in her eyes. Do you know anything about this kind of machine? We don't do normal sewing. We add designs to pre-made shirts and hats. Not a thing. But if it uses needle and thread, I'll learn. I held out my hand. Can you come in Saturday around 9? I'll have my partner teach you a little. Tears flowed down her cheeks as she shook my hand. I'll be there. Thank you, mister. You won't regret it. She turned to leave, and I stopped her. I need to tell you a couple of things. There will only be a dozen of us, and I'm not very formal. You can call me by my first name. It's Zachariah, but I like Zach better. And if you're going to work with me, I'd like to know your name. She covered her mouth, feeling shy. Mavis Turner. Thank you, Zachariah. For all the time I knew her, she never called me Zach. Gail wasn't too happy when I told her we hired Mavis, but she was impressed with how quickly Mavis learned. In just 3 hours, she got the basics down. We decided to pay them the minimum wage plus bonuses based on the work they did. If they could run the machines at 80%, they made about $9 an hour. It wasn't a lot, but it was better than not having a job. Our company was too small to offer health insurance, but I set up a deal for them to see a doctor 4 times a year for $20. Plus, they could get 3 generic prescriptions for free. I know it wasn't much, but I wanted to help. The women seemed to like it. Most of them were middle-aged and had worked in the textile industry. Mavis became the unofficial manager, acting like a friendly grandmother and cheering everyone on. The first thing I had each worker do was make a shirt in all 5 colors with their names on it. That became our uniform. Monday was red, Tuesday was blue, and so on. They liked it and wore the shirts proudly in the community. They voted to work 9 hours a day from Monday to Thursday and 4 hours on Friday. If we fell behind, which happened often, they could work all day Friday but never on Saturday. Most took the extra hours unless they had family plans. Everyone got a birthday party and could take a paid day off or choose to get extra pay instead. We also got them nice gifts. Mavis received a 19-inch flat-screen TV with a Blu-ray player and a free year of Netflix. She cried for an hour before she finally took it home. Gail complained a bit. Money was starting to cloud her judgment. We continued like this for a year. We added a new shift with college kids working 4 hours a night, 5 days a week, including Saturdays. Even then, we still couldn't keep up. We turned the spare bedrooms into offices. Finally, I walked into Gail's office and flopped onto her couch. I'm worn out. We need to grow and find a bigger place. I plan to spend next week looking for a larger facility. She pushed her glasses up on her nose. How big? She asked, trying to hide her excitement. I had been thinking about it for a month. Big enough for at least 100 machines. Plus space for you to start your jeans line. We might need 2 buildings. She jumped over the desk and hugged me, scattering papers everywhere. She was never neat. Gail had been unhappy since we were busy with shirts and caps and didn't have time to work on the jeans. It was time to change that. We found a nice building with a good rate. We planned to bring in the new machines in groups of 20 and get them running, hoping to finish within a year. There was a smaller building nearby within walking distance. We leased it, and Gail looked for overlock sewing machines to start with 20. The operation had grown too big for just the 2 of us. We were working 16-hour days and making mistakes. We needed a plant manager, a production manager, an office manager, an HR department, and an accountant to help keep costs in check. We placed ads in the newspaper and trade magazines. Our original group heard about the expansion and got worried. They liked the informal setting and didn't want anything to change. I didn't want that either. I trusted them and wanted to keep them as our main team. We held a meeting. First, we're not moving you. You might do different tasks, but your jobs are safe. I'll be at my home office half the time, so you'll still see me. We need a manager, and I'm happy to announce that Mrs. Mavis Turner will take over daily operations starting Monday. There were cheers and claps. Mavis was smart and solved many problems on the floor before they reached me or Gail. She was a natural leader. At first, she was surprised anyone believed in her that much. With a little encouragement, and when I doubled her pay, she agreed to take the job. I also gave everyone a bonus check, which was 2 weeks' pay as a thank you, Gail complained, saying I was being too generous and setting high expectations. I'm investing in our future. You can't put a price on loyalty. Of the original 12, 10 still work with us. One had to leave when her husband got sick, and the other just didn't fit in. Every woman could handle things on her own and still produce great work. How many employers trust their workers like that? You get what you give, Gail. Get it? What you give? Well, I thought it was funny. She didn't smile. We finally got a big break thanks to Mavis. Her great-nephew was a race car driver and had just moved up to a higher racing series, kind of like moving from beginner to advanced in baseball. There weren't many black drivers in that world. One day, Mavis came to me all excited. "Zachariah, my nephew is visiting. Can I have Friday off?" She had never asked for time off before, so I said yes. I might bring him here. The girls have never met a real race car driver. I perked up. What's more connected to racing than the local culture? Nothing. I saw a huge opportunity. I'll give you the day off with pay if you bring him by for lunch. I'll buy lunch for everyone if I can speak to him for a little while. That made her happy. I went back to my office and did some research. He was an excellent driver with a great record, both on and off the track. Married, he had 1 child. I was happy to see that his wife was a little on the heavier side. Mavis brought him in full of joy. He was friendly and had everyone laughing. He took pictures with fans while enjoying his lunch. He made quite a few fans that day. Finally, I got some time alone with him in my office. How did you start racing? My dad was a mechanic who fixed cars and raced on dirt tracks. He was pretty good at driving, but he liked working on the cars more. I began racing go-karts when I was 10. By 15, I was driving small cars on dirt tracks. I don't mean to brag, but I was good. I moved up to the ARCA series, and this season I'll race in the Busch series with the top drivers. That was an impressive story. How do you think you'll do? If the sponsorship works out, I should do well. Right now, we're on a tight budget. I leaned back and smiled. Okay, let's get to the point. My company is in a similar situation to yours. We're doing well, but still growing. Send me some numbers for how much it would cost us to put a possum logo on your car. In the meantime, how about doing some ads for us, you and your wife? We'll pay you fairly for being our endorsers. If your sponsorship comes through, we can add it to the contract. Think it over, talk to your people, and let me know. Either way, good luck this season. I knew I was in deep and feeling a bit lost. We had grown too fast. I went to visit my old professor, the one who first guided me. He was glad to see me and invited me to speak in one of his classes so he could share my success story. It was a bit embarrassing. Afterward, we had coffee, and I told him why I was there. Are you really retiring after this semester? Yes, I will miss it, but I believe I've done enough. I'll retire and look for something else to do, maybe some consulting work. I smiled at him. No, you won't. You'll be too busy with your new job as vice president in charge of development at Redneck Chic Clothing Company. He sat there, surprised, with his coffee halfway to his lips. Is that true? Absolutely. I need your help. With your connections in education and business, you're perfect for this role. Please form a team quickly. We can discuss salary later, but I'm sure my wife and I can make it worthwhile. I had already talked to my wife, Gail, and she was supportive. She was so busy with setting up the jean factory that she would agree to almost anything. We got lucky with a few employees. My oldest son had just lost his job, and he was trained as an accountant. I offered him the job of controller, and he was eager to accept. Soon he came by with his new wife, who was 4 months pregnant. They hadn't told me. She needed a job, so I hired her as my personal assistant. I even leased a house for them for a year from my own funds as a signing bonus. I hoped that by then they could buy it. Gail brought her aunt to meet me. She was a very attractive woman. At 46, she looked more like 36, with long black hair and dark eyes. She was tall and clearly worked out. The best way to describe her was fit. She was dressed nicely, but it showed off her shape. I realized Gail was still speaking and tuned back in, even though she is my aunt. I nodded and Gail smiled. It seemed I had just hired her as the office manager. "You won't regret it," she said, shaking my hand. I hoped that was true. Even if she wasn't the best worker, at least she was nice to look at. I know, that's not right. But oh well. Before she left, I glanced at her resume. Her name was Amaryllis, which was a flower name. She preferred to be called Amy. She had strong skills. Next, my youngest son joined us. He had a degree in materials management and warehousing. We didn't need a warehouse yet since we shipped products as soon as they were ready, but we knew we were growing. We held a meeting with my team. Gail, Amy, Ralph, my old professor, Barry, our lawyer, Greg, my oldest son, and Jerry, my youngest. This was the team that would help us grow nationwide. We had a lot to cover and needed to set up a chain of command. We decided I would be the CEO. Gail would be vice president in charge of the jeans division. Ralph would manage the t-shirt factory and more. Greg and Amy would lead the office staff, and Jerry would help improve our handling of materials and future warehouse needs. Debbie, Greg's wife, who was smart, would assist with my expansion plans. We worked out salaries. Ralph, Gail, and I would get company cars and some minor perks. There wouldn't be ownership options, but there would be profit sharing. It was rough, but I believed we could adjust it later. Where was all this money coming from? We couldn't get products out fast enough. Our first 25 machines went live, and we were actually ahead of schedule for about 4 days. We didn't have a plant manager yet, but I brought in a woman from our original team to run the section. Betty was fair and kept things efficient, even if she wasn't Mavis. Barry was pushing us to incorporate and consider going public in the future. I wasn't sure about that. One thing I disliked about our business was that we didn't actually make the t-shirts. They were okay, but made overseas. Lately, we had some issues with our suppliers. Jerry came to me. "Pop, how do you feel about using foreign-made shirts?" "I don't like it." "But what can I do about it?" His eyes were bright with excitement. "You can make your own shirts. There are empty factories across the country, especially in the South. Many workers still have the right skills. They might be older, but that could help us. There are many government benefits for hiring older workers. Think about it." I thought for about 30 seconds. "I bet you've already looked into everything. Get me a detailed cost report and we will vote on it." We checked the numbers. Making our own shirts would cost about 75 cents more each. Gail said no right away. Barry didn't like the idea, but both of my sons and Amy thought we should explore it. Ralph was unsure at first, but then agreed that we could market the shirts as made in America. Debbie had just had a baby, my first granddaughter, a month ago. I believed she would be the most beautiful girl ever. I had her picture on my desk. Debbie couldn't make the trip, so I took Jerry and Amy. Gail didn't want to go. She was too busy. I loved the area. It was country, but only 40 miles from the biggest city in the state. I felt sad to see rows of empty buildings that used to be busy factories. The unemployment rate was shocking. The local, state, and federal governments were giving money and benefits to attract businesses. We had already visited 2 states, but this place stood out to me the most. We found a good-sized building that was just right. It had been a shirt factory in the 90s, and some old machines remained. They were outdated and would need replacing, but you could feel the history. We brought our findings back, and Gail fought against it strongly. We should focus on what we do best. You know, we could almost double our profits if we moved the operation to China. We need to think about that. I was upset. It's not just about money. This company will not leave the country. It's about pride. That made her angry, but since I owned 65%, there was not much she could do. During dinner with his family, Jerry mentioned another point I hadn't considered. Even though we make the shirts here, the fabric will still come from China. I hadn't thought about that. You can't just say that without a solution. What do you have? He smiled. I have a fabric plant ready to help. They will make the shirts completely in America. They will need to hire an extra 120 people over a year if we give them a 2-year contract that can be renewed. It's only 40 miles from the sewing plant, so transport costs will be low. The downside is it will increase the cost by 50 cents per shirt to make them. Can we handle that and still make a profit? I had to think. Together with the sewing plant, the cost would go up to $1.25 more than just buying the shirts. I talked to Ralph and Amy, and they thought it was possible. We can raise the price if we have to. Let's see if people will pay for it. You're established now, and it will be a higher quality product. Gail objected again. She was buying all her denim from Malaysia for much less than it would cost here. Her expected profits were impressive. We were starting to disagree on almost everything. I looked closely at her. She was almost 24 now. She wore fancy clothes, expensive jewelry, and used a top stylist for her hair and makeup. She looked pretty, but didn't seem like the same person. Looking more closely, I suspected she had changed her body. Her company car was a Lexus. Based on our estimates, she was worth about $2 million now. Money had truly changed her view. Since Debbie did many errands for me, I had given her my company SUV and drove my truck to work. Ralph had picked the same model SUV, saying we could get a better deal if we bought two. Amy called me. She had taken over human resources when the woman we hired got caught in a drug ring. She was my age, 53. We didn't expect that. Amy was the right choice, with the right training and degrees. She had her hands full. Between the sewing plant, the jeans plant, and the monogramming operations, we now had 225 hourly workers and 40 salaried employees. It was time to get a health plan. She wanted me to come to the sewing plant. She had been there for 6 weeks, staffing the place and interviewing people for salary positions. They were set to make their first shirts the next week. They were still only half full, but she was working hard. I arrived on Friday, ready to spend the weekend going over progress with Amy and watching things work on Monday. She picked me up from the airport, hugged me tightly, and smiled widely. It felt nice. I sat quietly as she drove. It had been 4 years since Sherry and I separated, and 3 years since we started the company. I hadn't gone out with anyone in almost 2 years, and hadn't been intimate even longer. I just never found the time. I looked at Amy and realized I needed to change that. She caught me looking and laughed. "What are you doing?" I knew I was blushing. I figured I should be honest. Just enjoying the view. She smiled bigger and took a deep breath, making her shirt stretch. "Good. Some of us thought you were gay." "What?" She laughed again as we pulled into the parking lot. It was filled with cars, and tents were set up all over the grounds. "What's happening here?" "You'll see. Come with me." She took my hand and led me to the tent. I could see the area filled with people of all ages, kids running around and food cooking in the back. Now I understood why she got me an afternoon flight. She picked up the microphone and called everyone over. "Ladies and gentlemen, come here. Welcome to our first company picnic. I want you all to meet the man who made this happen. Everyone, this is Zach Bivens, the founder and CEO of Redneck Chic Clothing Company, your boss." Looking around, I saw my sons, Ralph, Barry, and everyone else in my family, except for Gail. Everyone was clapping, and I felt really honored. I didn't give a speech. Instead, I made sure to talk to every employee and their families, thanking them for working with us. There was a small ceremony when the oldest woman we hired, a 67-year-old grandmother of 9, handed me a shirt she had sewn. This was the very first shirt made at our factory. I took it home, had Mavis put my initials on it, framed it, and hung it on my office wall. Our company was growing quickly. Greg was managing our money and debts, and we were doing well. Mavis and the girls were busy designing new products. We were introducing collared shirts to replace the t-shirts. They also created a new logo with a larger possum, with its tail going halfway down the shirt. We called it the Long Tail Line, and it looked promising. We were also thinking about making jackets with an even bigger logo. Just for fun, Mavis made a stuffed toy possum, wings and all, for her 3-year-old granddaughter. I saw it one Friday afternoon when I took a rare half-day off. I stopped to chat with the girls and saw the toy on her desk. Mavis was a bit grumpy because she missed sewing as much, but she took pride in her work. Having turned 65 the month before, I asked her when she planned to retire. "When you kick me out of here. I'm happier now than I've ever been. I'm thankful for the chance you've given me." She hugged me tight, and I felt a rush of emotion. "Well, if that's the case, you'll probably outlast me." I loved the stuffed toy. I asked Mavis to make one for my new granddaughter. It became her favorite toy, and she slept with it until she was 5, then put it on a shelf and refused to part with it. Mavis made another one for me, which I kept on my desk at work. I looked at it often for about a year until an idea began to take shape. There were hardly any companies making stuffed animals in the U.S. anymore. Most were made in China or Malaysia. I brought it up with Jerry, and a month later he returned with a plan. There was a small building near our shirt factory, and he had found used machines at a good price. I told him to go for it. It took 5 months to get everything ready, and we started with 14 employees. The old machines weren't fast, but they made very good products. Gail was upset, thinking it was a waste of money. Our jeans were selling well, and she was working at full capacity with 2 shifts, adding equipment and workers until she ran out of space. To keep things calm, I had Barry set it up so that the stuffed animal plant was only mine and would operate under the Redneck Chic name. That seemed to calm Gail down. Since Mavis designed the stuffed toys, I gave her a quarter for every toy sold. The checks she got every few months were almost as much as her salary. I hardly saw Gail now except during meetings. She had her office at the jean plant and spent most of her days there. Greg told me she had a new boyfriend and it looked serious. He didn't think much of him. We made a deal with Will Turner and his wife to promote our company. His racing career was going well as he had won 2 races so far. I really liked her. She was friendly but a little unsure at first. "Are you sure a black couple is a good match for your redneck marketing?" I laughed and replied, "You've never met a black redneck? Racing is for everyone, and everyone loves a winner. You're perfect, the wife of a race car driver and plus size, which is our target market." We sent her several pairs of jeans and some shirts and caps. She called back the next week. "I love them. They fit well, are made in America, and are good quality. What do you want me to do?" She and Alice, our original model, became our spokesmodels. Will took some shirts and hats to the racetrack and gave them away to his friends after taking care of his crew. He helped launch our Long Tail line, appearing in ads in racing magazines, often with his wife. Alice appeared in farm magazines and also in Good Housekeeping, sometimes with Mary Will's wife. Sales dipped a bit when we switched to all American-made products and raised the price by $2 per shirt. I went online, including YouTube and our website, to explain the price change. We showed photos of our factories and I apologized for raising the price, explaining why. I said something that really resonated with people. "How much is your country worth to you?" Sales picked back up and continued to grow. The stuffed possums became very popular. I invited Amy, Will, Mary, Alice, and Debbie to visit the Animal Factory, as it was called. Will had a commercial driver's license, so we rented a small truck and filled it with stuffed possums. We visited the sewing and fabric factories, giving each worker a toy. Then we loaded the truck again and went to local hospitals, giving each sick child a toy. It went so well that we had 2 truckloads delivered and had volunteers from our factories take them to hospitals in their areas. We usually kept a low profile, but ESPN was doing segments on rising stars, and they caught Will giving away the toys and signing autographs at a hospital. They called him the Possum Fairy. The other drivers teased him a lot about it. One driver even put a little possum on his dashboard. Everyone could see it every time the dashboard camera was on. You wouldn't believe how much money it costs to sponsor even a small part of a Busch Series car. It took us a long time to decide to do it, but it really paid off. They painted the possum on his car's hood. This made him very popular with kids. He always had some stuffed animals to give to fans, both young and old. The stuffed animals became very popular. The little factory couldn't keep up, so we bought more machines and doubled how many we made. Our company was growing too fast again. I was back to working 16-hour days, had no social life, and was very stressed. It all came to a head when I collapsed after a week of only getting about 4 hours of sleep each night. My doctor was not happy with me. "You need to exercise and take time to relax. What good is being rich if you die?" You should think about these words. Exercise, relax, delegate. If you keep this up, you'll end up with a heart attack or a stroke. Later, my friends Debbie and Jerry's girlfriend Maria were in the room with me, while Ralph, Barry, and Amy waited outside to come in. I thought Maria would make a great daughter-in-law. When she was around, all Jerry could say was, "Yes, dear." I found it funny. Debbie and Maria gave me a hard time. Debbie said I needed to stay alive long enough to meet my grandson, who would be born in 6.5 months. Maria whispered that he wouldn't be the only new arrival in the next 7 months and showed me her ring. "You have a lot to live for, old man," she said. They talked it over and decided I needed a wife. "Someone who'll keep you alive long enough to annoy you," they said with a laugh. Amy peeked in, so they left the room. Ralph and Barry joked with me about not taking it easy and told me I could only work half days after taking 2 weeks off from work. What surprised me was how Amy acted. She cried on me. "You're being foolish. Think about how many people need you. I had to stop the shirt factory's managers from coming up here. I kept most of the locals from crowding the waiting room. Mavis is out there and won't go home until she sees you. You don't know how much you mean to these people." If she was trying to make me feel guilty, she succeeded. Mavis hugged me tightly, crying. I had to promise on my grandkids' lives that I would take care of myself. Amy put a note on all the bulletin boards asking everyone to stop sending flowers. My room was full, and I was sending the extra flowers to the children's ward. They kept me 3 days. When I went back to the office after getting out, production stopped right away. I don't think I've ever been hugged so much, especially since 80% of our workers were women. Amy didn't think I could take care of myself. She and Mavis made a plan. I would work until lunchtime, then go home to rest. Mavis would stop by every hour to make sure I wasn't working. Amy started joining me for lunch, saying it was to make sure I ate something healthy. Everyone knew I loved my double whoppers. I could sneak one in every week or so if they weren't watching too closely. I actually started to enjoy our lunches together. Sometimes we ate with the women from our shop, but usually it was just the two of us at the kitchen table. I even began to like salads. Even though we had worked together a long time, we never really knew each other well. I shared stories about my past marriages and how both ended because of cheating. I was surprised by her reaction. I really hate cheaters. I was married once, and I still remember how sad I was when I found out he cheated. When I caught him cheating a second time, that was it. I cried for days, but it didn't seem to bother him. My cousin told me his third marriage just ended because he cheated again. I'm glad I'm rid of him. She had divorced him 6 years before. I asked if she was seeing anyone now, and she laughed. "I don't have time for anyone. My boss is so demanding. If he didn't pay me so well, I would have left a long time ago." She said it with a smile, so I knew she was joking. "Why don't you have a relationship?" I asked her. "I don't have time for that. Someone has to keep things going." I laughed. "Besides, I'm getting choosy as I get older. I thought I'd never marry again, but now I'm starting to think maybe I would. Just because I failed the first 2 times doesn't mean there aren't good women out there. Eventually, I have to get it right." She looked at me in a different way. Before I could understand it, she changed the topic. "Gail is thinking about moving the clothing factory to China again. I think she wants to take advantage of how things have changed for you. She spends more time at the main office now, and I know she has lunch with Barry once a week. There's not much she can do since she's only a part owner. She's engaged now, and I don't like him much." I shrugged. "Why would she want to move? Is the money really that important? She must have a few million by now." "She feels frustrated, Zach. Remember, she wanted to be a fashion designer, but for the past few years, she has had to focus on being a business owner, and that comes first. Plus, she has always felt a bit bitter about you not sharing the load when you started the business." I was taken aback. When I asked Barry to help me set up the business, he thought 25% was fair. I came up with the idea, the name, and provided all the money. Sure, she helped, but I did most of the hard work. Giving her 35% was already generous. She was supposed to handle the designs, but she hasn't done much. Maybe it's time to end things. Amy looked surprised. After all, Gail was her niece. "I don't think that's a good idea. She really needs your guidance. Honestly, I don't think she would succeed without you." I made a noise of agreement. "I'm just thinking out loud. But tell her this. No business of mine is going to China or anywhere else. We're making good money. 300 Americans rely on us for jobs. That doesn't even count the jobs of our suppliers." "I'll tell her. But if she pushes, you need to do what's best for the company. I trust you to make the right call." She was holding my hand, and I was surprised by how nice it felt. Then she realized it and let go, moving back a little. We promoted Jerry to help with day-to-day tasks. Ralph took on some of my responsibilities. Since I was working half-days and couldn't keep Debbie busy, she became Ralph's assistant. I sensed something was wrong when Greg called me and asked to meet for lunch on Sunday. Maria and Debbie were both heavily pregnant. Debbie was 7.5 months along, and Maria was 5.5 months along. The Bivens family was really growing. Maria had also started working with us. She was great with our Hispanic workers. She managed 25 workers, and her team always performed better than the others, which made her proud. The lunch was serious. I held off for as long as I could. Okay, what's going on? You all look like someone just ran over your dog. Someone needs to speak up. The girls stood up and left, leaving me alone with the boys. They hesitated before finally sharing what was on their minds. Dad, Mom is in a bad place. She lost her job and found out her new husband is cheating. She's struggling, out of money, and her house is in trouble. Can we help her? I looked at them, not liking what I was thinking. What do you mean by help? Greg spoke up. Jerry and I found her a nice little apartment in a good building. We'll pay for the first year and cover utilities. Jerry is adding her to his phone plan. He paused for breath, and Jerry jumped in. She needs a job, Dad. Something to keep her busy and give her money. She needs to stand on her own in a year. I was not happy with where this was heading. I suppose you boys have a plan for her job. Let's hear it. Gail needs a new assistant. Her last one quit suddenly. She wouldn't even explain it to Amy. Everyone knows how difficult Gail can be. We thought since she's your ex-wife and our mother, she'll be a bit nicer. It works out for all of us. Plus, she'll be at the Gene Factory most of the time. You won't see her much except for weekly meetings. It would mean a lot to us. This wasn't great. I was over her. Heck, I'd married and divorced again since we were together, but I didn't want to dig up old wounds. Still, she was their mother, and she did need help. They looked hopeful. Okay, I'll go along with this. As long as I don't have to be around her much, make sure she understands that. They both started smiling. You got it, Dad. You won't even know she's there. We'd see. The girls returned and hugged me. We knew you would agree. You're a good man, Papacita. Maria's huge smile made it easy to see why Jerry loved her. Debbie whispered in my ear, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." At one point, they wanted to move her in with us. We both know how that would end. Debbie never liked Rosalind much, and she never hid her feelings. This made me love her more. I told Amy about it at lunch on Tuesday. She didn't seem too happy. Are you sure about this? I don't think you need any extra stress right now. I'll manage. She is the mother of my children after all. I have to deal with her. Plus, I gave her to Gail. It's not like she'll be getting a free ride. She'll earn her money. Amy actually laughed. Gail was not happy about this. I had to use all my HR skills to get her to agree, but I talked to her yesterday and she seems calmer now. Rosalind arrived the next week and right away started complaining. Her apartment was too small, the commute was too long, and she didn't like Gail. Other than that, things were perfect. Greg and Jerry had a little chat with her. We're doing our best here, Mom. If you don't like the apartment, you can move. But if you do, you're paying your own rent. We know Gail can be tough, but we hope you'll help her. If it bothers you too much, find a different job. We'll help you look. That quieted her down. She knew there weren't many jobs that paid as well, and the idea of paying her own bills didn't sound good. I saw her for the first time 2 weeks later at our weekly meeting. She had put on some weight, her hair was shorter and a different color, but she still had those sharp blue eyes. She spoke first. Zach, how are you? Oh, I'm just fine, Roz. How have you been? I saw her eyes narrow. She had never liked me calling her Roz. She took a few deep breaths to calm down. I've had better days. Thank you for your help. I know the boys appreciate it. So how's it feel to be a wealthy business owner? Things have turned out quite different from what we imagined years ago. I also never expected to have so many grandkids. I can't wait to see our grandsons. I smiled at that thought. Maybe she had changed after all. Before I could respond, Amy walked over and put her hand on my arm. Something was going on between them. It felt like a conversation only women would understand, and I wasn't sure I wanted to get involved. It's time to start the meeting, Zach. Don't let it go too long. I want to try that new Mexican restaurant on 5th for lunch, Amy said. Her tone was like an order, and I noticed Rosalind tense up. I wanted to ease the tension. She's right. It's time to get to work. Let's catch up over lunch at Jerry's house on Sunday. When I said that, Amy's grip on my arm tightened. I don't think she even realized she was doing it. Being a man, I often don't get women's feelings, but I had learned a bit. Was Amy jealous? I wondered why she would be. That thought kept me thinking. During lunch, I caught Amy looking at me a few times. What? Do I have food on my shirt? She asked. No, I have a few questions, mostly not about work. We still help support the Giles Center, right? If so, can you get me 2 tickets to see Jersey Boys? I've always wanted to see it, and I hear this is the best touring group in America. She thought for a moment. I'm sure I could arrange that, she replied. Great. Now for a work question. If I take an employee as a date, what kind of trouble could I get into? She stopped eating and stared at me, a sad look on her face. I wouldn't recommend it. If you date an employee and it doesn't end well, it could lead to all kinds of problems. Don't mix business with personal stuff, Zach. I pretended to look sad. That's too bad. I was really hoping you'd go with me. I know you love musicals. Forget it then. She choked a bit on her tea. Once she caught her breath, she saw me smiling. Stop it. Here's what will happen. You will pick me up at 6 and we will go to a nice restaurant that I will choose. Then, as 2 officers helping the center, we will watch the show together, and it will be purely for business reasons. Understand? So, I guess that means yes? Of course. Now finish your lunch, and if you touch that salt shaker, you might find it hard to clap on Friday with a broken hand. I sent her flowers that Friday morning. The card said, in appreciation of a loyal employee. Just business, of course. Debbie found out about the flowers and was in my office within 45 minutes. So, Amy? Flowers? You romantic guy, she teased. I tried to downplay it. Just a gesture of thanks, don't make a big deal of it. Before I could say more, Maria rushed in. She looked at Debbie. Is it true? Debbie nodded. Then Maria turned to me with a smile. Hey, just so you know, don't try to contact her. She took a half-day vacation. So did I, and so did Maria. We're all going to a spa and shopping. You better appreciate this. I raised my hands in confusion. Wait a minute, this is getting... Maria interrupted me. Give it up, Dad. I shouldn't tell you this, but she's had a crush on you for about a year. She nearly fell apart when you got sick. Men really don't see what's right in front of them. I've seen how you look at her when she doesn't notice. You want her just as much. Debbie jumped back in. Don't mess this up. If you do, lunch on Sunday will be icy cold. Whether you realize it or not, you need her, and she needs you. We could use a new mother-in-law. The one we have now is not that great. I felt defeated. Anything else I should know? Maria glanced at her watch. Yeah. Greg and Jerry will be here in about 20 minutes to take you shopping. When was the last time you got a new suit? You need to look good. And no driving your truck. The limo will pick you up at 6. Good thing you're wealthy because this not date is going to cost you a lot. You're welcome. Raising parents is tough, isn't it, Deb? She tried to contain her laughter. Yes, but they can be cute at this age, right? Greg and Jerry caught the last part of the conversation, and laughter filled the room, except from me. I just smiled. Come on, Dad. Make it easy for all of us. Let's get you a suit that looks like it's from this decade. I sat in the back of the limo, feeling like a 15-year-old being taken to his first date by his mom. I was really out of practice. Usually confident, I felt nervous. I had never been to her house before and admired the neat lawn and pretty flower beds. It felt like her, orderly, lovely, and inviting. When she opened the door, I should have said something, but I just stared. She wore the perfect black dress, simple yet attractive. It hugged her shape nicely, making it clear she was a beautiful woman. Her hair was lovely, arranged neatly in a bun, looking stylish without being overly fancy. She let me feel awkward for a minute before saying, For goodness sake, Zach, say something. Knowing it was best to be honest, I finally said, You're so beautiful. She blushed and giggled. Thank you. I'm glad my daughters-in-law's efforts paid off. I feel like a princess. I found my words again. They just got a better spot in the will. I'll say it again. You're beautiful. Now, princess, your carriage is waiting. She wrapped a black shawl around her shoulders and put her arm around me, and we headed out. We went to the new Thai restaurant by the center. Amy loved spicy food, and I did too, but my stomach wasn't always a fan. She ordered 2 sample platters, one spicy and one mild. She took little bites of food now and then, and as I wiped my forehead, I wondered how she could handle it. We were only a short walk from the place where the show was happening, and it was a warm evening, so we made our way there. I was getting used to her hand resting on my arm. The show was really great. We had some of the best seats available. Her hand stayed in mine for the entire performance. Thank you so much for tonight. I really enjoyed the show, I said. I did too, and I loved spending time with you. It's a shame it's over, she replied. Suddenly she stopped on the sidewalk. Over? Who said it was over? I plan to keep you out late. If you are very nice and lucky, I might even tuck you in, she said with a grin. I felt my face turn red, and she laughed. I loved that sound. She told the driver an address, and soon we arrived at a club that was perfect for our age group. A Beatles tribute band was playing, and they were quite good. They even wore matching suits and had the famous haircuts. Order us a pitcher of something light, please. I'll be right back, she said as she went to the restroom. When she returned 5 minutes later, her hair was down for the first time. I couldn't believe how long it was. We enjoyed our drinks and listened to the band. She was moving around in her seat. I wasn't good at dancing, but wanted to make her happy. Do you want to dance? I managed to start, but before I could finish, she pulled me onto the dance floor. For the first time, I understood what people meant by poetry and motion. Even though I felt silly, the slow dances were worth it. She fit perfectly against me. Her high heels made her just the right height. I knew I was excited, and I think she noticed. When I tried to apologize, she shushed me and moved a little closer. We took some breaks so I could catch my breath. She was nice and only wanted to dance the slow songs for a while. A friend of hers and her husband came by to say hello. I had seen them before. They were a nice couple who really knew how to dance. We asked them to join us, and I got them some drinks. Their names were Jerry and Sky. When the band started playing Twist and Shout, Amy felt restless. Sky said her ankle hurt and wanted to sit down. I called out to Jerry, "Hey, could you dance with Amy? I'm taking a break, and Sky wants to sit this one out." Amy looked at me, and I nodded. They jumped onto the dance floor right away. I watched her dance and felt glad she was having fun. They danced to a couple of fast songs before they returned. "Thank you. I appreciate it. Most guys I know get jealous if I dance with someone else," she said. "They're your friends. I'm not great at dancing, but he is." "I want you to have a good time," I explained. I paused for a moment, then added, "But if it were a stranger, I'd expect you to say no. If you're with me, you're with me. Got it?" She giggled in my ear. "I'm with you, honey." That could mean many things. When the club closed, we had coffee with Jerry and Sky, and I complimented their dancing. Sky smiled and gave me a card. They owned a dance studio, and before we left, we signed up for lessons. "I don't think you need lessons," I said in the car. "I taught part-time when I was younger. It won't hurt to refresh my skills. Plus, if you dance with the same partner, you both get better. It's good for fitness, too, much better than playing bowling," she said. I didn't mess up by trying to come in after I walked her to the door. I got several sweet kisses, which was enough for now. On Sunday, I faced a lot of questions before Roz showed up. The girls were full of excitement, while the guys just wanted to know if I had success. Their wives playfully hit them for their silly questions. When Rosalind walked in and saw all the smiles, she asked, "What's going on? Why is everyone so happy?" Jerry laughed and said, "Pop went on his first date in over 2 years. It sounds like he had a really great time." Everyone knew it was a joke, but no one corrected him. For some reason, Rosalind didn't find it funny. Her mood brought the energy down for a bit until their 2-year-old Ashley woke up from her nap. Debbie brought her in, and she was still holding her stuffed animal. Rosalind commented on how cute it was and said it looked familiar. "That's our company logo, Mom," Jerry explained. "We make those toys at our factory. We sell them online and in stores that carry our clothes. We've sold a lot." She rolled her eyes and said, "Just what you need, more money." Jerry was upset. The toy line meant a lot to him. "Mom, we've sold over 500,000 of them, making a profit of $1.50 each. This isn't part of Pop's other businesses. It's a charity. Every dollar after expenses goes to the Wounded Warrior Foundation to help disabled veterans have better lives. They fix homes for wheelchairs, help pay for service dogs, and provide counseling so they can live normally," he added. I wished he hadn't shared that with her. We didn't do it for attention. We did it because we wanted to help. Jerry's best friend lost both his legs in Afghanistan, and it deeply affected Jerry. He came to me for help, and we built ramps for his home. I realized helping meant more than profit to me. Bob graduated in accounting, and we hired him right away. He even manages the donations. I liked him, but he made me a bit nervous, not because he couldn't do things, but because he kept saying thank you. Rosalind felt a bit scolded and said she was sorry. All in all, it wasn't a bad afternoon, especially when I thought about something worse like going to the dentist. On Monday morning, I got an email saying what events I needed to attend for the company. It looked like my Fridays and Saturdays would be busy for a while. I still went home for lunch. I liked it and thought about making it a regular thing. Amy had lunch with me and Mavis, but she didn't bring up the weekend before. She did ask if I saw the email about getting more involved in the community. I told her I did, and I thought it was a great idea. Mavis was pretty sharp. When Amy kissed me goodbye and called me honey, Mavis's eyes got really wide. As soon as Amy closed her car door, Mavis was right on my case. "So you and Amy, it's about time. You're too good a guy to be alone. You need someone who cares about you, and she does." I put my hands up. "Hold on, we're just friends. No one is planning a wedding." She just stood there with her hands on her hips. "Sure, if you say so. But when this wedding that no one is talking about happens, I want to be on the groom's side." I looked at her while she walked back to the shop, smiling. Mavis told me she and the girls were working on something, but they would only share it when it was ready. She made sure Amy was with me at lunch on Friday. I knew something was brewing because they had been whispering and giggling for days. Mavis asked me to come into the shop after lunch. All the girls were grinning when we walked in. "You told us to try new things, and we did," Mavis said. "Get ready for a fashion show. Bring them out, girls." The show featured mostly grandkids from 8 months to 6 years old. They were all wearing colorful clothes with our logo. I had thought about starting a children's line, but I never got around to it. Mavis beat me to it. I was really impressed. When I looked closely at the logo on the jumper of the 8-month-old, I noticed it was wearing a diaper. One 6-year-old wore a dress with a mother possum and 4 little ones hanging onto her. Debbie was there with Ashley. She wore a cute pair of red overalls with 2 possum heads sticking out of the bib. Baby Possum was introduced online for a short time. We sold out in 2 weeks. Everyone was happy, except Gail. She burst into my house while Amy and I were having lunch. "You jerk, I'm supposed to be the designer here." We sat there with our mouths open. I tried to talk calmly. "Nobody is trying to push you aside, Gail. Remember, I asked you 2 years ago about a kids line? You wanted to focus on your jeans. You got that running, so go ahead and design as much as you want." She complained a bit more and then stormed out. We just looked at each other. "She's losing it," Amy said. "Her husband spends money they don't have on silly things, and she doesn't know how to say no. He thinks she has millions, but he doesn't get that having money isn't the same as spending it. Plus, he convinced her not to get a prenup." I sat up straight, my feet hitting the floor. Is she crazy? There's a rule in our partnership agreement that if either of us gets married, our spouse has to sign a prenup to protect the business. What was she thinking? I knew Barry would be happy about this. Things moved along between Amy and me at a nice pace. We went to concerts, plays, sports events, anything that counted as a company function. I wondered how all the romantic movies she made me watch fit in that category, but I wisely kept quiet. During race season, we had access to the owner's box. I wasn't really into racing, but Amy loved it. Mary and Alice were almost always there, and Jamie loved racing too. They often helped hand out treats to the crowd, especially to kids. We had added kid-sized T-shirts, which were a big hit. Will was winning a lot and placing in the top 10 consistently. The main owner wanted to move up to NASCAR next year, and we were along for the ride. Will was likely to be Rookie of the Year if he kept up this pace. We had to add another building for more machines and expand the shirt factory, which meant our cloth supplier needed to grow too. Forbes magazine did a feature on us. We were on the cover. Jerry, Greg, Ralph, Amy, Debbie, Maria, Mavis, thanks to me, and of course, Gail were all there. The headline read, "Smiling for Miles, the Redneck Chic Clothing Company Story, a True American Success Story." As things got better between Amy and me, they grew worse between Gail and her new husband. I could see trouble ahead. We had traveled south as a family for the annual picnic at the shirt factory. The food was amazing, with great meats and side dishes. The desserts were made by the employees. Most of the employees were women, and the competition was tough. Desserts were judged in different categories: cakes, pies, cookies, and a catch-all for anything else. First prize in each category was $100, second place got $50, and third got $25. The overall winner received $250. The bragging rights were priceless. I knew better than to be a judge. We invited the local mayor and county leaders to help us judge, along with a few employees picked at random. We enjoyed games for the kids. Ashley was old enough to join in for the first time. Adults played horseshoes, badminton, and more. It took 3 hours during the festivities to judge the desserts. The winners were announced at the end of the event, and prizes were given out. The grand prize went to a coconut cake made with fresh coconut. The woman in her 40s cried like a little girl. Their pictures were all over the local newspapers, alongside pictures of the politicians. Many photos showed local people having fun. There was one of Amy and me being silly. In the first photo, I had put a big piece of coconut cake into her mouth, making a mess with the icing on her face. In the second, she got back at me by giving me a big kiss and rubbing icing on my face, too. The photo named us as the main owner of the company and his wife. The kids thought it was funny. I got a surprise when we checked into our hotel. We went straight from the plane to the event, and at the front desk, they gave me and Amy key cards with the same room number. Before I could say anything, she thanked the clerk and pulled me away while the kids giggled. I got tired of waiting. If it were up to you, we'd still be sitting around. Now be quiet, and let's not mess this up. It had been a long time since we had fun together, as I said before. Amy tried to catch up for lost time all in one night. I was 55 and she got 2 rounds out of me, 3 if you count the one that happened at 6 in the morning. I was glad she made me take those dance classes. They helped me get in better shape. Both my ex-wives seemed dull compared to Amy. I had never had a woman give herself so fully to our time together. Now 50, she was still fit and lovely. She made me wait in the living room of our hotel suite while she changed. It felt like it took forever. She wore a see-through outfit and high heels. She spun around, enjoying how I stared at her, my mouth hanging open. "Do you like this on me?" By the time I could reply, she was on my lap. We kissed and touched for a few minutes before I pulled back. "I can think of one thing that would look better." She looked puzzled for a moment before I laughed. "As good as it looks on you, it would look even better off you." She laughed, too. "Well, I put it on, so it's fair you take it off." I liked the sound of that. Her body was lovely, full and soft with a little sag because she was older. She blushed while I complimented her, nibbling here and there, making her feel excited. She tensed when I moved lower, holding onto my head. "You don't have to, you know." I kissed her hard before answering. "Oh, yes, I do." That's when I found out she could enjoy herself many times. When she finally asked me to stop, I felt too excited to hold back. I slowly joined with her, feeling every nerve in my body. She sighed happily but made little sounds as I moved faster. In the end, she cried for me to stop, but also for me to go faster. I did both until I reached my peak. I fell onto her for a moment before shifting to the side and holding her close. We lay quietly until I felt her tears. "Are you okay? Did I hurt you?" She lightly tapped my chest. "Shut up, you silly, and let me feel happy." I kept quiet. We dozed off. I woke up with her spooned against me, her hand reaching back and touching me gently. "It wasn't fair, you know," she finally said. "What do you mean?" "You gotta have fun, and I didn't get my turn." I smiled in the dark. "I'm sorry. I had to take care of something urgent. If it makes you feel better, I promise to make it up to you later." She pushed me onto my back and got on top of me, guiding me in. When she settled down, she smiled. "I'll hold you to that." I let her set the pace until I couldn't wait any longer and pulled her hips down hard. She squeaked and pushed back. I reached my peak right after her and she fell onto me. I held her until she fell asleep. The next morning at 7, I woke up to her washing me with a warm cloth. When she saw I was awake, she tossed the cloth aside. "Good, you're awake. Now it's my turn to play." 20 minutes later, I felt like my head might burst. I lay there breathing hard while she laughed. She tried to get me up for a shower, but I held her for a bit until I could catch my breath. We took a shower together. We washed each other's backs, fronts, and everywhere else we could reach. With one arm wrapped around her waist, I found a special spot and made her feel amazing. She later told me it was the first time she ever felt that way. We made it to the dining room just in time for breakfast with the family. Debbie grinned and told Amy she looked great. Greg said I looked tired and couldn't have slept well last night. They all giggled and made fun of me while Amy just smiled. I surprised them by saying we would stay a few more days. I wanted to visit the toy factory and the cloth plant. Mostly I wanted to get Amy back in bed, and I'm proud to say I did. We didn't talk about what came next until we were on the plane home. I didn't beat around the bush. So how long do you think it will take for you to move your things out of your apartment? She took my hand. I want to spend a lot of time in your bed, but I'm not moving in right away. We need to get comfortable and make sure nothing will pull us apart. And just so you know, I'd love to live with you, but I believe in marriage. Does that scare you? I held her hand tightly. The only thing I'm afraid of is not being the one you want. I'd be happy with everything else. It must have been the right answer because she held my hand for the rest of the flight. I felt lost and lonely on the first night at home. After spending 4 nights with Amy, I would often wake up reaching for her only to remember she wasn't there. She also looked tired the next day. We had a hard time during lunch with Mavis. Mavis looked back and forth between us, then suddenly smiled. We were in the bedroom before she even closed the door. Later, as we cuddled, Amy said she would return with a suitcase later. I just need some extra clothes in case I decide to stay over, she explained. A week later, she went back to her apartment to get more clothes. Everyone was happy about our relationship except for 2 people, Gail and Rosalind. I was shocked about both of them. Rosalind came to my office just as I was about to go to lunch. "Can we talk?" she asked. Slightly annoyed, I checked my watch. "I have a meeting soon, but if it's quick, I can stay a bit," I replied. She sat down and fidgeted for a few minutes. Finally, I spoke up. "You don't have much time, Roz. Just say what you need to say or I'm leaving." She took a deep breath, looking nervous. I noticed her top was low-cut and her skirt was short. I felt uneasy. We were good for each other for many years, right? Until I made a mistake. We've both changed. Do you think we could— I interrupted her. "By mistake, do you mean the year you spent with your boss? Saying I was a loser? How good he was? Or trying to take everything from me during the divorce? If I hadn't threatened to sue your company, you would have succeeded." "And you bragging about your new husband and how great he was?" I added. She looked shocked as I spoke. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I had held these feelings in for so long for the sake of our kids. I tried to calm down. "I'm sorry things didn't turn out the way you hoped, Rosalind. But too much has happened, and we can't go back. You still look great, you have a good job, and you're near your kids, so count your blessings." Before I could say more, the door swung open and Amy walked in. She looked at Rosalind coldly for a moment and then turned to me. "It's lunchtime, honey. Do you want Mexican food or just a salad? I can have the Mexican delivered for dinner so we have more time to relax. Does that sound good?" Rosalind sat there, speechless. I couldn't help but enjoy the look on her face. I stood up and took Amy's hand. "Roz and I were just talking about old times. I was about to tell her how great my future looks, but that can wait. I'll see you Sunday." We left before she could say anything. Amy noticed my smile during lunch. "What? Everyone knows we're together. Your door barely shut before I knew she was in your office. She needs to understand that I don't share. If she thinks she does, she needs to find a new place to play. I protect what's mine." I grinned widely. "Am I yours then?" I asked. Her expression softened. "Yes, you are mine. You have been since I realized I loved you when you were in the hospital. Can you handle that?" "I'm not sure. You might be too good for me. But I'll try. It might take me years to get it right, but I want to make you happy." She suddenly jumped up and rushed to the restroom, tears streaming down her cheeks. I guessed I had messed up again, but when she came back and kissed me, I knew I was doing something right. I was seriously looking for the perfect ring while she was thinking about new curtains and carpets. I told her I'd support her wishes as long as she left my office alone. We were happy. I felt very happy. What could go wrong? 2 weeks later, I was in my office looking at honeymoon brochures when my secretary called. "Boss, there's a lady here to see you." "Who is she? Does she have an appointment?" "No appointment. She says she's your wife." I was confused. Everyone knew Rosalind, and Amy hadn't said yes yet. I thought it might be a joke. I nearly fell out of my chair when Sherry walked in. "Hi, Zach." "Surprised to see me?" She was smiling and dressed nicely. "No, more like disappointed." "Why are you here?" I asked. The smile faded from her face. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry. Remember what I wrote in my letter?" I felt a little satisfaction when I admitted to her that I never got past the first page. "Why not?" she asked. I decided to be honest. I was hurt. After Rosalind, you made me believe in love again. For 6 years, I thought you were mine. Then I found out you had been doing things for money. You were supposed to be different. Her face showed she was upset, but it seemed important to her. What do you want, Sherry? I pressed. She sighed and looked down. I'm broke. I sold my house to keep my business going, but I lost everything. I know you didn't tell anyone, but the truth got out. Most people just want to take advantage of me now. I lost my office listings. No one wants me around. She slumped into a chair. I really mean it when I say I'm broke. I spent my last money to come here and rent a room for 3 days. Please, help me. I don't want much, but I need enough to get by for a few months. I have a friend on the West Coast who said she might help me find a job. Part of me was glad to see her so upset and asking for help, but a bigger part felt sorry for her and wished things were different. I leaned back, sighed, and then took out my checkbook. This is all I'll give you for the good times we had, but you need to leave town. Really soon. I hope you find happiness. I'm going to ask my girlfriend to marry me today. She's a great woman, and I love her more than I ever thought I could. I want to remember the good moments we had and believe you acted out of a tough spot and poor choices. Her eyes widened as she looked at the check. She tried to thank me, but I stopped her. Just take the money. I won't miss it. I honestly can't believe how much I have now, and I owe it to you. If you hadn't let me down, I would never have moved here, met the great people who helped me, and found success. She wiped her tears away. Can I have a goodbye hug? I thought for a moment. No, don't make me explain why. You wouldn't like it. The door opened, and Amy walked in. Hi, sweetie, I just need... She saw Sherry. Never mind, that can wait. I took her hand as she turned to leave. No, I'll try never to make you wait. Miss Myers was just leaving. I turned and put my arm around Amy's waist. Good luck, Miss Myers. With everything. Excuse us, my assistant will show you out. I walked out with Amy and enjoyed the look on her face. I never saw Sherry again. We turned a corner, and Amy pressed me against the wall, covering my face with soft kisses. I know who she was, she said. I started to explain, but she put her hand on my lips. Hush. If you haven't guessed by now, I can be very jealous. You're mine, and I don't want anyone else near you. Any other ex-wives I should know about? I shook my head no. Good. Just so you know, I have eyes everywhere. I trust you completely, but you're too nice sometimes. You need me to keep you focused. And by the way, I'm not shy about listening in on private chats. Now, is there something you want to ask me? This wasn't how I planned it, but I got down on one knee and pulled out the ring I had in my pocket. People were walking by, secretaries and workers on their way to lunch all stopped to stare. As you said, I would be lost without you. I think I need more help, and the best way to have that is to have you with me always. Amy, you are the love of my life. I've tried twice before, but I believe I found the one I was meant to be with. Please, will you marry me? Not the sweet words I wanted, but I got the point across. Everyone in the hall seemed to hold their breath as she knelt down to look at me. Yes. Simple. Just the word I wanted to hear in my life. People applauded and cheered, but neither of us really cared. We stayed on the floor, kissing for what felt like 5 minutes. Finally, the kids came running down the hall. Maria and Debbie pulled Amy up and they hugged each other while spinning in circles. The boys just stood there grinning. Quit smiling and help an old man up, I told them. They pulled me to my feet and the girls hugged me while Amy hugged Jerry and Greg. It was all over in 40 minutes. Mavis called me an hour later. Remember, I sit on your side of the church. I wished I could have seen her face. You won't sit much. My parents are gone. You'll have the role of the groom's mom. She couldn't say anything more, so she hung up. The date was set. Amy moved into my house. We talked a lot about the future. I think I'll retire. The boys are doing well, and Ralph will still be there to guide them. I'll stay CEO, but only step in when they need help or can't agree. If I retire, you retire too, okay? Please? She smiled. Like I'd let you roam around by yourself. I'll have a full-time job looking after you. Everyone was happy about the engagement except for Gail. She wasn't happy about anything lately. She finally put a stop to her husband's spending. She told him he needed to get a job if he wanted his own money. He hadn't worked since they married. He got very angry and left, taking every dollar he could from their accounts. Then he sued for divorce, asking for money and half of her company. Barry earned his keep. He brought up the partnership papers that excluded the business from shared property. It was a gray area, but he told him straight that it could drag on for years. He would have to pay his own fees unless he could find a lawyer to take his case for free. Barry had a good name, and lawyers were cautious. In the end, Gail had to pay him $1.5 million to get him to go away. The problem was, she didn't have that money. She came to our house and had lunch with Amy and me. I want out of the company. I want to keep the jean business and the brand. You can have the rest. Can we work something out? Amy and I talked about it. She said it wasn't her decision, but I reminded her that we were going to be partners, and everything we decided would affect both of us. We talked to Barry, who had an outside company value the business. In the end, we split the company as she wanted. She got the jean company and kept the Lardash label. I had to pay her $2 million in cash to buy out her share. Amy tried to convince her to stay with us, but she was set on leaving. I've learned a lot. It's time for me to move on and follow my own dreams. Once she signed the papers, she closed the factory and moved the business to China. The people in town were heartbroken. When I heard the news, I was really mad, but there was nothing I could do. The only choice I had was to buy the machines and start a new company with a different name. Amy created our new logo, Livin' Large, with 2 big red L's on the pocket. We sent out messages and updated our website and YouTube to tell everyone about the change. We didn't talk badly about Gail or say where she went, but people found out anyway. Still, things went well for her for about 3 years. Then she sold her company to a Chinese group and opened her own design place in LA. Everyone at the company knew I liked new ideas and rewarded great designs. Maria brought me an idea. I connected her with Mavis, and something wonderful happened again. Maria had a bunch of nephews and cousins aged 10 to 16. She asked them why they didn't wear our clothes. They're lame, one said. They don't have any skulls or chains, another added. They called Amy and me to the design lab. Mavis, now 70, decided to retire at the end of the year. This would be her last project for the company. Maria had the kids model the new designs. We called it the Punk Possum line. It wasn't the cute logo everyone knew. The possum had black wings like a bat and red eyes. The wings looked like bones because they were outlined in silver. We began with hoodies and t-shirts, giving away the first ones to get our name out in the community. Then we got married, and I met her son for the first time. She had him late in life, and he had just finished college. Naturally, we brought him into the family business. Greg took him under his wing, and Jerry helped too. Rosalind met someone special, and things became serious. Before we knew it, she got married and moved away. Although the boys would never say it, they were relieved. Our Sunday dinners turned into big celebrations. Amy and I didn't work much anymore, except for a board meeting once a month. For our honeymoon, we went on a world cruise. We enjoyed it so much we decided to go on a cruise every year, bringing the grandkids along to give their parents a much-needed break. So far, life has been good. Mavis did retire for 6 months, but then she called me. "Do you know who Ozzy Osbourne is?" she asked. That was a strange question from a 70-year-old woman. "Yes, Mavis, I do." "Great, because I'm about to quote him. Retirement sucks. When can I come back?" "Just as soon as you can walk through the door." And she's still going strong. Before moving on to the second story, please let me know your opinion. Do you like the story long or short, a series or separate parts? The comment section is always welcome, and don't forget to let me know which of these 2 stories you like better. Story 2. Black Friday. The alarm went off at 3 in the morning. I can't understand why otherwise normal, smart women wake up so early, fight huge crowds, all for a deal. But my wife loved it, and I loved my wife. So I got up, cooked a big breakfast, and helped her get ready. "Hey," called my stepdaughter Amy, walking into the kitchen to grab a cup of coffee. "Hi, sweetie," I replied, feeling her kiss my cheek. "Ready to take on the crowds?" "Ha!" she laughed. "We have a plan. I'm wearing the right shoes this time. Last year, a huge woman stepped on her toes. They hurt for weeks. As a joke, I got her steel-toed shoes, and I was surprised when she liked them." "Morning, Dad," my other stepdaughter Jane cheerfully said as she walked in. I had the water ready, cut the lemon, and she sat at the table with her Earl Grey tea, checking the sale papers and planning their route. I shook my head, thinking if she could plan like this in the military, General Jane would rule the world. Next, my nieces Lori and Sandy came in. They kissed me, poured coffee, and looked over Jane's plan. I made another pot of coffee. My wife Debbie stumbled in, still sleepy even after showering. She kissed me, asked for coffee, and sat down. The last part of our group wasn't here yet, but since they were always late, I started serving breakfast. Scrambled eggs, you could cook over easy if you wanted, bacon, sausage, ham, home fries, rice with gravy, and 2 big pans of homemade biscuits. By the time I was done, Amy's friend Jean and her mom Alice arrived and began eating without hesitation. Finally, the last person rushed in. Wow! Almost missed breakfast again. I laughed at my ex. She would be late for anything. I handed her a sausage and egg sandwich and a travel mug of coffee, chuckling as she tried to eat and walk at the same time. I was left with a big pile of dirty dishes and lipstick on my cheek from all the kisses. I still couldn't understand why anyone would wear makeup at that hour. Wiping my cheek, I smiled widely. I felt like the luckiest man alive. Instead of going back to bed, I sat in my recliner thinking about how I got here and how lucky I was before I dozed off. I didn't always feel this way. 8 years ago, I saw life as pretty miserable. My wife had just left me. Not because she wanted someone else, but because she just didn't want to be with me anymore. I had suspected something was wrong, but never thought it would end like that. 17 years of marriage down the drain. I was never exactly what she wanted, but she seemed happy enough. It was her second marriage. Amy was 5 and her ex had disappeared, so maybe I was just a backup plan. Amy was a sweet girl with kind thoughts. At first, I was nervous as a dad because I didn't have any experience, and she barely remembered her real dad, so we were both figuring it out together. Before long, she really became a daddy's girl. I coached her softball teams, cheered her on during soccer games, and gave her boyfriends a hard time when she reached that age. I even cried with joy when I walked her down the aisle on her wedding day. I think sometimes her mother felt a bit jealous about it. Her mom worked as a secretary, and I was in maintenance at a local factory. She went to school at night and earned a degree, which we both felt proud about. I had an associate's degree in management, along with certificates in welding and plumbing, and I was a licensed electrician. Even though I was older, I was pretty good with computers, too. But she thought her degree made her a bit better than me. We saved money, thanks to my push for it. We both had 401k plans, and she had a profit-sharing plan at her job. Looking back, I think she was just waiting to use that money. I didn't argue. I just ensured we split everything fairly. I didn't want to keep the house, so we sold it and shared the money. She went on a cruise, got a nice apartment, a new car, and enjoyed her new life as a comfortable divorcee. As for me, I went back to work, got a promotion to maintenance manager, rented a small house, and continued to save. It was just me now. I didn't date at all. I had no interest in it. At 46, I felt so out of practice I didn't even know how to start. I might have ended up lonely if I hadn't gotten hurt at work and needed to go to the emergency room. Debbie was my nurse. She treated my wound after the doctor stitched me up, and she kindly patted my wrist. That might have been all, but then she got stuck outside. It was pouring rain, and being late October, it was also chilly. She stood outside the door talking on her phone. "Damn it," she said, tears in her eyes. I'm a sucker for a woman in tears, so I couldn't help myself. I gently touched her arm. She looked at me in surprise. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. The sympathy on my face seemed to push her over the edge. "No, I'm not okay. My old car just broke down, and now I can't get home, and my daughter can't get to her class. Plus, no bus comes near my house, and I don't have cash for a taxi. I don't even have an umbrella." She looked like she was about to lose it. I took both her hands, surprising her a bit. "Calm down. No decent man would leave a nice lady like you stuck in the rain. If you don't mind riding in my old truck with someone not great at chatting, I'd be happy to take you home. Please, I wouldn't be able to rest knowing I didn't help." I think that last part got to her. She looked at me and even giggled. "I wouldn't want to stop a man from resting. It's not far, if you truly don't mind." "Please," I said. "I'd be honored. Just stay dry while I get the truck." Her eyes widened when I pulled up. I didn't get why she was surprised. I wasn't lying about my old truck. I just didn't tell her it was a '61 Studebaker, fully restored. It was my pride and joy and had taken up most of my time these past years. My great-uncle had one of these, but it didn't look as nice as yours, she said once she settled in. This is my latest project, I replied proudly. I usually restore old cars and sell them, but I just can't bring myself to do that with this one. We began an interesting chat about old cars and some favorites we had owned before we knew it. We arrived at her apartment. She seemed a little hesitant to leave. "Thank you so much," she said, about to open the door. "And thanks for letting me ride in this cool truck." I looked her in the eye and decided to be honest. "Look, Debbie, I may not be good at this because it's been so long, but would you like to have dinner with me one evening? As long as you're not married or in a relationship. It's been forever since I met someone as nice as you, and I'd really like to get to know you." I might have upset her, judging by the look she gave me. Then she spoke up. "I don't see a ring. Are you married?" I shook my head. I was for 17 years, but not for the past 2. Thankfully, there was no cheating or nasty fights. She just woke up one morning and decided she wanted to be single again. She refused counseling and wouldn't talk about it. In the end, she hinted she was just bored. It took me a while to accept that. Her eyes widened. "That sounds even worse than if she had cheated. My story is less dramatic. He wanted to stay married but also date other women. When I firmly said no, he just disappeared. I haven't seen him in 12 years. She shrugged her shoulders. "But what happened is in the past for both of us. Come in, meet my daughter, and have a cup of coffee. I'll let you know my decision before the second cup. I even have homemade pound cake." She introduced me to her daughter, Jane. Jane was studying nursing and aimed to become a nurse practitioner after finishing school, keeping the family tradition going. Her apartment was small but neat and welcoming. She made a great cup of coffee, and the cake was delicious. I complimented her, and she was so thrilled that she gave me 2 slices to take home, happy when I didn't even pretend to refuse. Jane was distracted, worrying about classes. "I have a way home. I just need to get there." Her class started in 45 minutes. "What do you think about old trucks?" I asked, while her mom smiled. "If your mom comes with me, I'll give you a ride." She seemed eager to get to class because she quickly began gathering her things. "I'm sure your truck is just lovely," she said, while Debbie smiled. I could tell she was impressed. Debbie didn't mind sitting close to me. I quietly thanked the old bench seat in the truck. I felt a bit let down when Jane got out and Debbie moved over. I stopped in front of her apartment. She sat for a moment before reaching over and giving me a gentle kiss on the cheek. Friday, 6 o'clock. I really like seafood. After that, she quickly got up and almost ran into her apartment. I smiled all the way home. The next day, I went into work. I just wanted to avoid getting my accident marked down as lost time. I stayed until lunch and then took the rest of the day off. It hit me that we hadn't exchanged phone numbers, so I went by her place, hoping she might be there. She wasn't, but Jane was. She was outside, working on a car. "You don't look like a mechanic," I joked. She didn't hear me and jumped, hitting her head. She got mad and started swearing. Then she saw me and turned red. "What do you want?" she asked sharply. "I didn't get your mom's phone number. We have a date on Friday. I wanted to check if the restaurant I picked is okay with her. Here, ask her to call." I gave her my business card, which had my phone number on it. She looked it over. "Maintenance manager, huh? Do you know anything about cars?" she asked. I just smiled. "Let me take a look." By the time Debbie got off work, I had fixed the car. The belt was broken. They had drained the battery, but I jumped it, and I had Jane drive it around to charge it up. It also needed oil and had a dirty air filter, so I replaced those too. I showed Jane how to check the oil and transmission fluid while I explained everything. She was grateful and even hugged me. "Please have your mom call," I reminded her as she got in the car. "Yes, sir," she said, smiling. "And thank you." I smiled back. "Go on, don't keep her waiting." Later, I got a nice call from Debbie. She thanked me a lot and insisted on paying me. She asked how much it would cost. I have a little flaw. I love to trade. It makes me happy to find a deal that works for both of us. "Let's do that for your car." Her voice got cold. "What do you want to trade for?" Oh dear, she misunderstood. I paused, then decided to have some fun. "Something personal, something I hope you don't do for many men." I heard her gasp. Before she could get upset, I laughed. Here's the deal. I haven't had a real home-cooked meal in almost 2 years. That's what I want. Nothing fancy, just meatloaf or a casserole. Dessert would be a bonus. Does that sound good? There was silence, and I wondered if she hung up. I make great fried chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, and steamed broccoli for sides. My mouth is watering already. What time? I could feel her smiling. We'll decide on Friday. How do you feel about chocolate pie? Hold on, I'm getting dizzy. I haven't had good chocolate pie in years. I looked at myself in the mirror. I knew I didn't look perfect. I had a bit of a belly, probably about 15 pounds over my ideal weight. Still, I was in decent shape since my job kept me active. I had scars on my arms from working with machines and being clumsy when I was younger. I was bald and kept my head shaved. No facial hair either. I was often described as rugged, but I didn't look like a prince. I wore glasses because I couldn't see well. Still, I made an effort. I wore a suit, a tie, and polished shoes. I even drove my nice car instead of my truck. I thought about her while I drove over. She wasn't a beauty queen, and she was closer to 50 than 40. She had a typical shape that many women have as they age, maybe 30 pounds heavier. But it suited her. Still, she had a warm smile that made me feel good, and there was a beauty inside her that shone through. When she opened the door, she took one look at me, squeaked, and ran into her bedroom. I stood there, unsure if I should leave or stay when Jane came out, smiling. Please, come in. Mom just realized she didn't dress up for your night out. She'll be here in a minute. Would you like something to drink? Water, soda, or beer? I sat down feeling a bit awkward. I thought she found it funny. No thanks. I haven't had a beer in almost 10 years. She looked at me strangely. Do you have a problem with alcohol? I felt myself blush. Yes, I don't like the taste. Besides that, no problem. Mom will love that. Her last boyfriend drank a bit too much. That's one of the reasons they stopped seeing each other. Just then, Debbie came back out. She wore a burgundy dress that went to her knees. I thought she looked beautiful. You look great, I said, meaning it. She turned red while Jane giggled. I had to change, Debbie said. It's been a long time since I went out with a man in a suit. Jane chimed in to ease the tension. I think you both look wonderful. You'll turn heads at the restaurant. I took that as a hint to leave, so I offered my arm to Debbie. She paused outside, looking for the truck. I smiled for the first time that night. Did you really think I would wear a suit and drive my old truck? Let me open the door for you. I had driven my little Lincoln, which was a light gray color with dark leather inside. It was 10 years old, but I kept it very clean. We went to the best seafood restaurant in town. Debbie seemed nervous looking at the prices. We could go somewhere else. I quickly stopped her. This is where I wanted to take you. Don't worry about the cost. If you don't order what you want, I'll swap it for the most expensive thing on the menu. Do you understand? I don't eat out much, so I choose nice places. Now let's order. We both chose seafood platters. Mine was large and hers was small. We had to get a doggy bag because we left a lot of food on our plates. I shared stories about my life, and she told me about hers. Her ex-boyfriend left her with a lot of debt she's still trying to clear. She lost her house, and I could hear the pain in her voice. She had tears when she talked about her flower beds and bird feeders. I told her how my wife left me to chase adventures. She wasn't careful with her money, and her expensive vacations stopped. I mentioned my little house and my hobbies like gardening and fixing up old cars. I rented a spot in an old garage to work on them until they were ready to take home. She seemed surprised when I said it was my first date in 2 years. Why? She asked, looking curious. I shrugged. I didn't want to. You're the first woman in a long time who caught my attention. I think she smiled a little, happy to hear that. We talked after I dropped her off about everything and nothing. We sipped coffee while I ate 2 pieces of cake. At 11, I got up to leave. She walked me to the door and we shared a sweet kiss. It wasn't wild, just a nice kiss. It was the best feeling I'd had in a long time. After about 20 seconds, we both pulled back a bit shy. She squeezed my hand. I usually serve dinner around 6:30. Is Wednesday good for you? For a home-cooked meal, I'll make it work. Wednesday sounds great. Should I bring anything? Just a good appetite. I don't like seeing food go to waste. When I got home to my little house, I noticed for the first time how empty it felt. I thought about her as I fell asleep. Jane opened the door with her usual smile. Mom took today off and has been cooking since 3. You better say it's good. From the smell, I'm sure I will. What do I do with these? I didn't want to show up empty-handed, so I stopped and bought some flowers. Give them to Mom, of course. How long has it been since you've had a date? I thought it was funny how she used the word woo. Probably since before you were born, and I wasn't really good at it then. Her smile got bigger. Don't worry. I'll help you now and then. Mom seems really happy. She looked serious all of a sudden. Don't hurt her, okay? Life has not been kind to us. I was about to respond when Debbie came out of the kitchen. Jane, who was at the... She stopped when she saw me and the flowers. I held them out. Hello, Debbie. I thought you might like these. Her hands shook a little as she took the flowers. It seemed like a long time since anyone had given her some. I made a note to plant flowers next spring. These are lovely, she said, handing them to Jane. Put these in some water, please. Dinner in 20. We were all surprised when she kissed my cheek. Then she hurried back into the kitchen. Jane and I talked. She was 20 and just starting her 2nd year of school. She was focused on her goals. Luckily, community college doesn't cost much, but it gets expensive when I transfer. I hope to get a scholarship. It's going to be tough if I don't. Debbie called us to the table before we could keep talking. The food was great, just like I thought. We discussed everyday topics, our hobbies, and our families. I told them about my older sisters and their families, all girls. They didn't have close family nearby and didn't visit them often. I don't think that bothered them much. Before the night ended, we made plans to go to a movie on Saturday. I hadn't watched a movie in 10 years. I let her choose, so we went to see a romantic movie. I didn't mind because she held my hand almost the whole time. She had tears in her eyes at the end and leaned against me. I just love happy endings, don't you? Even if she had said she wanted a scary movie instead, I would have agreed. After the movie, we went to a small Italian place she knew and had pizza, saving the extra slices for Jane. She invited me in. Jane's on a date, and I'm a bit nervous being alone. Is that okay? Of course. We sat on the couch, sipping coffee, and after a while, we cuddled. She leaned in for a small kiss. Just as I was about to kiss her more, Jane got home. We quickly pulled apart. She saw our blushing faces and giggled. She went into her room, saying it would be easier for us to talk, but having her there made us behave. I got a nice goodbye kiss and a date for the next Saturday, plus dinner on Wednesday. This created a routine. We had a date on the weekend and dinner on Wednesdays. About every 3rd time I took them out. Nothing fancy, just a nice buffet or barbecue place. They seemed to enjoy being spoiled a little. I looked forward to seeing both of them. I missed having family around. I thought everything was going well. We were in our 5th month and hadn't gotten close in an intimate way yet, but we were getting there. One day, as I walked into a mall to buy a new tool, I passed a jewelry store. Before I knew it, I was looking at engagement rings, wondering which one she might like. I gathered my courage, walked inside, and before I knew it, a young salesgirl had convinced me to buy a ring she said many women liked. I bought it right away, reassured that if she didn't like it or said no, I could return it. It was early March, and I thought about surprising her with a wedding in June. I had heard that women liked that idea. She had gotten me to take her to church every Sunday. I wasn't really into going to church, but her faith was important to her. To my surprise, I started enjoying it. I even helped out sometimes at events or projects. I began to join the men's breakfast every other week. I thought I was happy, and I hoped she was too. Everything changed the next Wednesday. We had just finished a nice dinner and were enjoying dessert. I asked her what she wanted to do over the weekend. She had a strange look on her face. I'm sorry, Frank, but I already made other plans. A doctor at work invited me to a fundraiser at the country club, and I said yes. The news hit me hard. I felt like she had slapped me. The pound cake in my stomach felt heavy. I stumbled over my words. Oh, okay then. Maybe another time. I muttered some meaningless words and left. I was hurt, but I hadn't said anything to make her think we had to be faithful to each other. She hadn't made any promises, and I hadn't asked for any. I just thought she felt the same way about me as I did about her. I was wrong. On Saturday, I sat at home feeling angry. I was mad at her, mad at myself, and mad at the whole situation. People have told me I can be stubborn. If she wanted a doctor, fine. She could have him. I didn't go to church that Sunday and didn't call or visit her that Wednesday. On Thursday, she called, but I let the call go to voicemail. I deleted 3 messages without listening to them. I ignored her call on Friday, too. She left a message asking how to dress for our planned date. I waited until she was at work to leave my own message, saying I had other plans and didn't remember inviting her out. I hoped I hadn't given her the wrong idea. I packed my truck and headed to the mountains. I usually found fishing calming, but this time I couldn't focus. I only caught 2 small fish in 10 hours. For dinner, I ended up grilling a hot dog. Later, I stared at my fire and wondered how I could compete with a doctor. I sighed and got into my sleeping bag, happy I had a nice air mattress. Surprisingly, I slept well. When I got home on Monday afternoon, Jane was waiting for me, very upset. "Where have you been? Mom cried all weekend because of you." I was still angry. "Maybe you should go back to your mom and ask her doctor to help her feel better. I have things to do." She didn't listen and walked right into my living room. "This is what this is about? You're an idiot. She didn't want to go. She wanted you to tell her not to go. She wanted you to want her for yourself. She wanted to get closer to you." I interrupted her. "Did she go out with the doctor?" Jane paused. "Yes, she did. And she had a terrible time. She just wanted to make you a bit jealous, you fool. Go back to her and tell her it worked. Tell her I'm too old and too set in my ways for this kind of game." If she asked me, I would have told her I wanted her to myself. I was thinking about our future together. But if she can act like this, what will she do later when things get tough? I don't want to spend my life with that kind of worry. Jane looked shocked. "Oh my God, you love her, don't you? I think she loves you too. Please, Frank, talk to her. Get over this. I'm sure she will make you happy. Promise me you won't go anywhere. I'm going to tell her what we talked about. Please, Frank, if you care at all, answer the phone when she calls." I looked at her. She seemed so serious. "I don't have any plans this afternoon or evening. I will answer my phone." She hugged me tightly, kissed me, and rushed out of my driveway. An hour later, I was mowing my lawn. I had set my phone to vibrate so I wouldn't miss a call, but it never rang. Maybe Jane was wrong. Maybe she didn't want to talk after all. As I turned my mower, I saw her car speeding into my driveway. She didn't stop until she was deep into my grass. Looks like I had some fixing to do. Luckily, she parked the car. She jumped out quickly, coming toward me. By the time I turned off the mower and stood up, she was on me and we both fell over. She was crying hard. I couldn't understand everything she was saying. "Sorry" and "forgive me" were repeated several times. The best way to calm her was with a kiss. She kissed me back with a lot of energy. Eventually, I got her calm enough to guide her to the porch swing. She looked a mess. Her hair was wild, her lipstick was smudged, and she had grass all over her clothes. I almost wished I had taken a picture, but I knew I looked bad too. After we got settled, I started our conversation. "So, Jane said you wanted to talk? About what?" She began to cry again. I let her cry, holding her close. After a while, she calmed down. "I need to say I'm sorry, Frank. What I did was silly and stupid. I didn't want to go on that date. I wanted you to tell me not to leave, that I was yours. Looking back, I see I messed up. I should have told you about his question, but since we were together, I didn't want to say anything until we talked. That way, we could both share our feelings. Please forgive me. I was scared to say it before, but I love you." She looked sad yet hopeful, and it broke my heart. "If you ever think about doing something that foolish again, I will set you straight. You are mine. Completely. Do you understand? And by the way, I love you too." This brought more tears and kisses. Once she calmed down, she promised that if she ever acted silly like that again, she would bring the hairbrush. She finally got comfortable, cuddling up close to me. Then she hesitantly asked what was on her mind. "Sweetheart, Jane hinted that you had something important to tell me. Can you tell me now?" I didn't answer her right away. I got up, walked to the truck, and opened the passenger door. "Get in the truck, please. I have something to show you." She hurried and jumped into the truck. I buckled her seatbelt and gave her a quick kiss. We drove in silence for about 20 minutes, then I turned into a long driveway and got out. I opened the gate and drove through. The road twisted among 13 tall old pecan trees. Once there were 14, but one fell during a storm. The drive led to a big yard. There was a barn and several small buildings, but no house. I opened the truck door and helped her out. "Where are we?" Her eyes sparkled. I smiled, but kept quiet. 12 acres, I said, waving my arm around. 5 are wooded, 3 are pasture, and the rest is field and yard. The house stood right here before it was burned down. The well and septic tank are still here. "Who owns it?" she asked, her eyes bright with hope. "We do. At least we will once we get married. I bought it a year ago, but waited to build a house because I wanted you to choose what you want. But first," I got down on one knee, which was not easy for me, and pulled out a box from my pocket. "You have to say yes. Debbie Martin, will you marry me?" She looked shocked. I thought she might faint, but then she pulled herself together, shouted yes, and hugged me tightly. For 2 people our age, we were having a lot of fun rolling on the ground, kissing. She held my hand all the way back to the house. She went to the bathroom, and I heard her talking on the phone. Later, I heard the shower start up. Before she got in, she opened the door just a little and called out, "Can you wash my back?" I rushed into the bathroom. Like I said, she wasn't a beauty queen, but to me, she was beautiful. She pulled me into the shower with her. We soaped up each other, enjoying each other's touch until the water started to cool. I didn't know how long it had been for her, but I hadn't been with a woman in 2 years. My ex had been focused on her weight and was always very thin. Debbie was soft and warm, and I loved how she felt. I held her close. We made love. It was more than just sex, and I can't find the words to describe it, so I won't even try. As we cuddled, she began to cry again. I hoped this wouldn't keep happening. I might be a bit slow, but I knew to hold her close and whisper sweet words until she calmed down. She didn't leave until the next morning. When my alarm rang, I found myself alone, which was disappointing. But my whole face lit up when I found her in the kitchen wearing one of my t-shirts making breakfast. "Morning, love," she said, placing a plate in front of me. The kiss she gave me said everything I needed to hear. While I ate, she chatted nervously. Before I left, she made me give her a key to my place. "I need to get some food. You don't have much in the pantry. How can I feed you with an empty kitchen?" She looked surprised when I asked to go with her. "Okay, sweetie. I took 2 days off work. Let me drive your truck today so I can move some of my things, all right? And I need to keep paying rent on my apartment. Jane can't handle it alone. Is that okay?" It sounded like she was moving in. I couldn't stop smiling. "Of course, that's fine. I'll take the Lincoln. Love you, babe. Now I have to go or I'll be late." Our goodbye kiss turned into a long one, and I ended up running 10 minutes late anyway. That afternoon, we went grocery shopping. It seemed like a simple task, but it filled me with happiness. I wasn't picky, so I went along with what she chose. The bill came to over $200. Clearly, I was out of everything. She was getting ready to pay with her card when I stopped her. "Here," I said, handing her mine. "We need to go to the bank so I can add you to my account. Luckily, they are open Saturday mornings. We'll go then." Then she started crying again. During dinner, she talked about closing her accounts and combining them with mine. I surprised her when I told her no. "Not right now, sweetie. You need to take care of Jane and her education first. I don't want to pay her rent forever. When we go house shopping, let's make sure it's at least a 3-bedroom. Also, a house where the master bedroom is on the opposite end would be good for privacy." She started crying again. Maybe I should have said less. Just then, Jane rushed in after we cleaned the kitchen. She grabbed me and gave me a quick kiss. "Hi, Dad. Is there any dinner left?" She said it like she had done this her whole life. It really touched me. "Maybe just a bit. You need to be on time if you want it hot." And just like that, we became a family. It was meant to be a small, cozy wedding. But when the Reverend announced it at the end of his sermon, things quickly got out of hand. She had been coming to the church since she moved here, and everyone liked her. The women of the church stepped in and took charge. Soon, the church was full of our friends, my family, and most of the congregation. Our reception was short. We left while everyone was still having a good time to catch our boat for the honeymoon. We didn't choose a sunny beach or a warm place. We were going to Alaska. It was her choice. Her first honeymoon was a beach trip. So was mine. We wanted something different. When we came out of our room, we were having a great time. Even at our age, a honeymoon felt special. When we got home, we started looking for a house. I had a friend who worked at a company that built modular houses. I liked his home and suggested it to Debbie. We considered the pros and cons of modular versus traditional homes, and modular won. Debbie asked me what I most wanted in a house. To be able to live in it with you, was my answer. That seemed to be all I needed to say. Soon, she and Jane were visiting local dealers, comparing options until she found the one she liked. It had 3 bedrooms and was 1,700 square feet. She brought me to see a model, and I liked it. We started talking about the cost, but I quickly decided I didn't like the salesman. He seemed too busy telling us what we needed instead of listening to what we wanted. So I asked to speak with the sales manager. I want to save us both some time. We want this model in the colors my wife chooses. Just tell me your price. If it's fair, we'll start the paperwork. I won't tie up our land in this deal. I can put down around 60%. Give me a good price and a decent interest rate, and we'll have a deal. And I want him to help us from now on. I pointed at the other salesman. With that kind of down payment, they were eager to help us. Deb and Jane chose the colors for the siding, shingles, and shutters. She convinced them to upgrade the master bathroom at no extra cost, including a big bathtub. For our tired muscles, she said. I imagined us together in that tub and knew which muscles might be sore. She was surprised when I said no to a prenup. She thought I would want one since we were spending most of my savings on the house. Have you forgotten our wedding vows? She looked puzzled. Remember the part all my worldly goods I thee endow? I meant it, I said. I was paying close attention to her. I had to, or we might have ended up wrestling on the floor again. We settled into married life easily. We both were pretty easygoing. We didn't fight for control or play games. If she was good at something, she took charge and I did the same. She handled the house, and I took care of the cars, the yard, and the outside work. We shared anything else. I gave up my rented garage and made one of our buildings into a workshop. I also kept the barn in good shape, just in case I needed it. When her old apartment lease ended, Jane moved in with us. It was an adjustment, but we knew it wouldn't be forever. Jane graduated and became a nurse. She needed to get a master's degree to follow her dream of being a nurse practitioner, but she had to find the money first. She was in line for a partial scholarship, but it only covered less than half. She thought about working full-time for a year to save money, but if she did, there was no guarantee her scholarship would still be there. I had bought an old pickup truck for a good price. I rebuilt the engine and fixed the body, but it still needed paint, something I couldn't do. One Saturday morning, I gathered them at the kitchen table. This was where we made most of our big choices. I've thought a lot about this. I helped my first daughter go to college. I can't ignore my second. Jane, this is for you. I handed her a check for $28,000. Where did this come from? She asked, her voice shaking while Debbie looked on in shock. I sold my old car. I've got the pickup, and it's much more practical. It was the right time, and this money will help. With this and the scholarship, you can focus on your studies. We'll take care of your gas and other needs. All you need to do is graduate. And yes, we expect free health care, I added with a smile. I didn't know who was more surprised, Jane or Debbie. Then the tears started, followed by hugs. Later, I got some affection from my wife. You didn't have to do that, she whispered in my ear as we relaxed. Yes, I did. I never had any kids, and I always wanted a big family. For a long time, I thought it would just be Amy. Then you gave me Jane. I never got to help raise her, and this is my way of catching up. I probably should have talked to you about it first, but I knew you would have tried to talk me out of it. She deserves this, honey. Be happy for her. She snuggled closer. I am. I'm also happy for myself. I don't know what I did to deserve you. I think all the tough times I had before were a test to help me appreciate what you've given me. I promised God and myself I would always be worthy of your love. Now I had tears in my eyes, too. I held her tighter. Now, shh. I'm the lucky one. Get some sleep. We have a lot to do tomorrow. Her hand wandered. You'll sleep in tomorrow because I plan to keep you up a little longer. Wow, twice in one night. We hadn't done something like that since 6 months after our wedding. I started a garden because I always wanted to have one. I grew beans, corn, tomatoes, and cucumbers. At first, Debbie didn't care much about it. But when the vegetables were ready to pick, she got excited. That made her sign up for canning classes at the local extension office and look for a freezer. We had so many vegetables that we gave some away, which helped us get closer to our neighbors and family. I thought it was a waste to leave our field empty, so I took Debbie to a seminar about small farms. We were surprised by what we could do. I found an old Ford tractor that needed fixing up, and I worked on it all winter. We searched through ads and auctions until we had enough tools, and that spring we started planting. Debbie wasn't as into it as I was, but she liked driving the tractor. She had her own hobbies, too. She finished one of the bedrooms and made it into a sewing room with a tiled floor instead of carpet. I made fun of her woman cave, but she was really good at sewing. She loved making quilts. These weren't just any quilts, they were beautiful pieces of art. Most were traditional designs, but sometimes she made something unique. She was part of a quilting group and often won prizes at shows. I thought it was just a hobby until I learned she could sell some of her quilts for over $300. A quilt helped connect Debbie with my first daughter, Amy. Debbie had been at Amy's wedding, and they got along well. Amy married someone I wasn't too fond of, but he made her happy. I really liked my grandson, though. He was named after me and his father. He was 2 years old and full of energy. We watched him about once a month while his parents took some time for themselves. I worried a bit about Debbie, but she loved little Frank, and he followed her everywhere. Debbie looked a little anxious. Amy didn't know about the quilts, and Debbie had made one for her and one for the baby. "Amy, can I show you something?" "Sure, Debbie. What has Dad grown this time?" She laughed because I had started growing unusual vegetables and fruits. When Debbie unfolded the first quilt, Amy was speechless. It had a bright Ohio star pattern that really popped against a soft background. She laughed when she saw the quilt for the baby, featuring Lego characters, one of little Frank's favorites. When Amy realized that Debbie wanted to give them to her, she began to cry. They hugged, and Debbie started crying too. I took the baby outside to give them some time. When I went back inside, they were calmer and happily talking about quilts. It seemed I had been replaced as the quilt show buddy. Just then, Jane walked in, and the conversation started up again. I left the baby and went outside to work on something, although I wasn't sure what yet. Jane found me in the barn. "I really like her," she said. "I wish I had met her when I was younger. I could have used a big sister." She didn't know that Amy had followed her to say goodbye. Suddenly, Amy hugged me from behind. "We'll just have to make up for lost time, right, little sis?" she said to Jane. I thought, if they start crying, I'll just head into the woods. Jane graduated almost at the top of her class and already found a job in a local office. We planned a big celebration at our house. Her friends, my family, and our friends would be there. I noticed that Amy looked a bit sad. "What's wrong, Pumpkin?" I asked, giving her a hug. She sighed and said, "I love all this," waving her arms at everyone gathered. "But I wish Mom had family to share it with. She has friends and family. She's not alone. What about that accountant she was dating? Is he still around?" "No, they didn't last. I don't think she wants a serious relationship. I think she's afraid of being hurt like she hurt you. It drives her crazy sometimes, trying to figure out what she really wants. She spends a lot of time alone." I was surprised. Ever since I was with Debbie, I hadn't thought much about Amy's mother, just a brief mention now and then. It felt like that part of my life belonged to someone else, like a show I had seen. I thought about this more and talked it over with Debbie. We were having a 4th of July cookout soon, so I decided to take a chance. When I showed up at her door, Kim looked very surprised. "Frank, is something wrong? Is it Amy?" She looked good, still thin and worried about her weight. She had dyed her hair blonde, and it suited her. "Take it easy, Kim. Nothing is wrong. Amy is fine. I wanted to talk to you. May I come in?" She shook off her surprise and said, "Sorry, please come in." She offered me a cup of coffee, but I noticed it still tasted terrible. She never learned how to make it well. "I'll get right to the point. Debbie and I are having a cookout in 3 weeks for the 4th of July. Amy and most of my family will be there. We want you to come." "Why?" she asked. "Because you're Amy's mother. Because most of my family still likes you. I don't like what you did to me, Kim. It hurt me a lot. But you never lied to me, and when you made your choice, you looked me in the eye. I can respect that. The past is the past. Debbie and I want you to be part of the family again. I am committed to Debbie, so I can only offer friendship. Think about it." She began to cry. I thought maybe I could make a business out of this. How to Make a Woman Cry in 3 Simple Lessons. I'd make a fortune. When she stopped crying, she thanked me, said she would be happy to come, and kissed my cheek. I was a fool, Frank. Thank you. She came to the cookout with Amy and her family. She wanted to hang back, but Amy held her hand and led her along. My oldest sister approached me then. She was retired now and had 4 grandkids from her 2 daughters. The kids were running around with their friends. She put her hands on her hips and looked at Kim, who seemed like she wanted to escape. So, a blonde, huh? That makes sense. Come here and give me a hug, you skinny thing. She was known for her funny way of talking. Mom! Lori shouted. The kids can hear you. I'm having a rough time already. Just yesterday, Chastity asked me what a dumbass was. Please behave. June just laughed and pulled Kim into a hug. Bring her over. I'll introduce her to her aunt. Then she'll understand. Amy couldn't help but laugh, and soon half the family was giggling. There was a quiet moment when Kim and Debbie saw each other, but Debbie took Kim's hand and led her to a picnic table away from everyone else. They talked for about 15 minutes and hugged when they were done. You could feel everyone let out a breath of relief. Now, instead of having separate celebrations for me and her mother, Amy just brought Kim along, and we had one big event. Debbie hadn't said much about Kim, but one day I came back from working in the garden and saw her, Kim, Amy, and Jane in the sewing room, happily working on a quilt together. I felt so good seeing my family get along that I stepped outside to let them enjoy the moment. I had 2 acres of land to care for. That might not sound like much, but it's a lot for just 1 or 2 people. Debbie complained a bit about how much time it took from her sewing, but when I gave her the $8,000 we earned during the season, she didn't say anything more. Then she surprised me with a bank slip for $4,500, which was the total money she made from selling quilts that year. We paid off our house 5 years early. The next year brought a scary surprise. I didn't feel well, so I went to see Jane at her office. She ran some tests and told me it would take a few days for results. When she called me, she was crying so hard that I couldn't understand her. Finally, a doctor took the phone. Frank, you need to come in. We found something on the tests. Lung cancer. 2 of the scariest words I had ever heard. I wondered how I got it since I had never smoked. They thought it might have come from chemicals I was around when I was younger. Luckily, they caught it early. I went to the hospital surrounded by crying women. Debbie, Amy, Jane, my sisters, and even Kim were all there. She held my hand tightly. Don't you dare die. Debbie would never survive without you. 1 week later, I came home after having 1/3 of my right lung removed. All the follow-up tests came back clear. I felt overwhelmed by all the attention from the women for a long time. It took a year for me to recover fully. I thought I'd never get to work in my garden again, but the whole family helped out, and it was even bigger than before. To say thanks, we took the $11,000 we made and went on a vacation together. We all went to Florida for 2 weeks. Me, Debbie, Amy, her husband Jack, Jane and her new husband Mark, plus Kim and her husband Jeremy. He was really nervous when he first met the family, but after a while he relaxed, and everyone had a great time. I don't want you to think it was perfect. If you put 2 people together for long, they might argue about something. We didn't argue often, but it happened. Some were big deals, but we never attacked each other personally and always talked it out later. Sometimes she'd get all worked up, point to a sign on the wall and say, "Because I'm the queen, that's why." Usually after that, she would start giggling and the argument would just fade away. The sign read, "Queen Debbie I, ruler of this double-wide and all its minions." It was a joke that began when a country singer sang about his life and his loving wife, who was the queen of his double-wide. Amy heard it one day and burst out laughing. "He's talking about you, Debbie. You are definitely the queen of this double-wide." Her birthday was the following week, and Amy had the sign made as a funny gift. Debbie loved it so much that she hung it on the living room wall. We all thought it was hilarious and very fitting. One morning, I woke up to little Frank, now 6, pulling on my sleeve. "Wake up, Pop. Time for breakfast." I got up, stumbling to the kitchen. Kirsten, my 13-year-old great-niece, was making pancake batter. Allie, another great-niece who was 11, was cracking eggs into a bowl. 9-year-old Amber was setting the table while 6-year-old Julie tried to help. Did I mention I had a lot of girls in my family? I was babysitting them while their moms and grandmas went shopping. The older girls had spent the night in Jane's old room. Julie and Frank slept on an inflatable mattress in the sewing room. They were all well-rested and ready to start the day. I helped, and soon they were eating and happily chatting about what they wanted to do after breakfast. This was another family tradition that started 3 years ago with Kirsten and Allie. I had been babysitting them one weekend, and they helped me pick up pecans for their moms and friends. Remember the pecan trees? That year there were so many pecans on the ground. I even called a county expert to look at them. He said they were probably a type called Stewart's and were about 50 years old. We picked up way too many. I gave some away at work, and one woman told me they sold for $5 a pound in stores. Kirsten, who was 10, wanted to earn some money for Christmas presents, and an idea popped in my head. The next week, we gathered 5 bushels. Then we sorted through them, threw away the bad ones, and used my vegetable scale to pack them into 1-pound bags. I placed a small ad in the local paper, selling them for $2.50 a pound. In total, we had over 100 pounds. I thought she might earn $20 or $30. They sold out in just 3 hours. She paid me back for the ad and still had $240 left. People were asking if we would have more next week. We had a clever plan. We sold a small buckboard I had made. It was pulled by Jenny, my donkey. Jenny was a female donkey. That's what I called her. I got her from a friend who worked with an animal rescue group. He wanted to keep her in my barn for a few days while they found her a new home. She had come from a farm where she and the other animals were treated very badly. Some animals had died. When he brought her to me, she could hardly walk and would snap at anyone who got too close. After a few days, I fixed the fence so she could go outside in the sun. It took her 2 days to come out of the stall. I made sure she had water and some food to eat. Donkeys mostly just need grass. The food and some apples and carrots were special treats. It took 3 months before she stopped trying to bite me when I got too close, and 6 more months before she would take an apple from my hand. After a year, she would run to the fence when I came out, making a noise for a treat. I started putting a halter and a lead on her. Soon she would follow me around the yard and the garden. My friend said she had been trained to pull a wagon, so I built one just for her. When I called, she would grab her harness from the hooks in the barn and bring it to me. I used her to carry in the veggies when I harvested. I had to watch her around the carrots, but she didn't bother anything else. I felt good about Jenny when little Frank was 4 and wandered into the pasture when I wasn't looking. He wanted to be friends with Jenny. I saw him and ran as fast as I could, calling out to keep her calm. She sniffed him for a moment. Happy that he smelled like me, she gently picked him up by the collar of his shirt and walked over to me, dropping him in front of me. The look in her eyes seemed to say, "I don't babysit," and she turned away, heading to her food. She really liked Kirsten because she always gave her treats and fussed over her. I let Kirsten drive the buckboard the first time I hooked up Jenny, holding a long lead, just in case. I didn't need it. I showed Kirsten how to hook her up, and every time the kids were there together, she had to hook her up for a ride. She was the perfect choice when we started the pecan business. Jenny was just the beginning of our animals. The garden attracted mice, so I got a couple of cats for the barn. Debbie quickly fed them and petted them until they just wanted to stay in the house, which made them less useful as hunters. My friend brought me a big dog that needed rescuing. It was a Great Pyrenees, a loyal dog known for protecting things. He was helpful in keeping pests away from the chickens that Debbie wanted, as they laid colored eggs, usually pretty blues and greens. The kids loved to collect the eggs. Later, my friend brought me a female llama that I named Dolly. I was a bit nervous about how Dolly and Jenny would get along, but they seemed to like each other and even slept in the same stall. However, Dolly didn't like Pete the dog and spat at him whenever he got too close. He learned to keep away. I started looking into packs because I wanted to bring Dolly into the pecan business, just another fun idea. Soon we had a tradition, and people would look forward to it every year. As the kids got older, it became a team effort, and each child got a share depending on their age. But if they didn't help, they didn't get to sell anything. It taught them important lessons. This year was especially good. We picked 700 pounds over 3 weekends. Allie was good at math, so she counted the money. Kirsten got the orders ready since most people wanted more than 1 pound. Amber would bag them, and Julie and Frank took turns delivering them. This way, everyone worked based on their skills and how old they were. Meanwhile, Jenny just stood and looked bored. They sold 600 pounds in 4 hours. I left them to work, but kept an eye on them. These are tricky times, after all. When they finished, they had $1,500. Kirsten got $500, Allie got $400, June got $300, and the two younger ones got $150 each. They were all happy. Since most of the money were in ones and fives, it looked like a lot, especially to 6-year-old eyes. Of course, the 700 pounds was probably less than a fourth of what our 13 healthy pecan trees could produce. Deb and I talked about it and set aside 3 trees for family and sales, giving the rest to our church. They came to pick up the pecans over 2 Saturdays, usually with about 20 people. We made it a big event by providing sandwiches and drinks, helping out. The men would pick, while the women sorted out the bad ones. They'd weigh everything into 1-pound bags to sell, with the money going to help various projects. On good years, we could collect close to a ton. On bad years, less than 1,000, but it was still a good amount. Finally, the girls came back in looking tired. I saw the minivan and the SUV they had used, both stuffed full. They flopped down on any available furniture, kicked off their shoes, loosened their clothes, and sighed or moaned, depending on their age and energy. Nobody felt like cooking, so I ordered pizza. Amy complained about how much money she had spent while little Frank climbed into her lap. "You can have my money, Mommy," he said, showing her his bag. $150 looks like a lot when it's all in ones. She hugged him tightly. "Thanks, baby. But I'm okay. This is your money. You earned it. Next week we will go Christmas shopping and you can spend some of it. Sound good?" "Okay," he said, smiling as he climbed off her lap to get a slice of pizza. Soon it was time to leave. We shared more cheek kisses, and then they were gone, leaving me, Debbie, and the kids. The kids wanted to pick more pecans in the morning and sell them in the afternoon. Everyone was tired, so we went to bed early. Something felt off. After a moment, I realized I was alone in bed. I got up and found Debbie crying in the living room, looking at pictures of Jane when she was little. I worried something was wrong. "What's the matter? Are you okay?" She looked at me and smiled. "I'm fine. Jane told me a secret today. We are going to be grandparents again in 7 months. She told us in the van. We almost turned around to come back home." I hugged her tightly. I was so happy. "Then why are you crying?" "Because Jane told Amy she felt bad for having a boy before. She always said her first son would be named after you." They hugged and whispered, then said there could never be enough Franks, so her son will also be named Frank. Since Amy's Frank is the oldest, he will be called Big Frank, and Jane's son will be known as Little Frank. How does that make you feel?" I had tears in my eyes now. I guess I had been in a house full of emotions for too long. "I feel proud and humble. Now let's go to bed. You need to help with the kids tomorrow." She kissed me before getting up. "Okay, but you have to handle Jenny. I know she doesn't like me." I didn't follow her right away. I checked on the kids all snug in bed. I made sure the doors were locked, then stepped outside to listen to the sounds of the night. I looked up at the full moon and thought about how lucky I was. I had my dream. Not money or power, just a loving wife and a big family that cared for one another. I sighed as I locked the back door. I needed to go to bed. The kids and pecans won't wait for anyone. Hey audience, if you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.